On one jolly week at the tail end of December, a new tradition was born. Dozens of teams gathered around the virtual Crandon International Raceway with winning and having fun in mind, hoping that what went around would come around again. And tonight, it has finally come full circle. Live from the virtual Bark River International Raceway, we welcome you to the inaugural Shenandoah Shine Great Lakes 100 and the first race of the hashtag Yes2Motorsport virtual off-road team Endurocross. Welcome to Racecraft TV, where alongside Ian Fisher in the broadcast booth, my name is Kenneth Bueno. We'll have Zach Johnson producing our shots all evening long. And Ian, when you look at the pop-up event that came up over Christmas week, the Group Therapy 100 that started with just an idea of putting a bunch of cars together on a dirt road track and having some fun, this time around, it's come with an inaugural session in mind and a full season really over the course of 2022. It's going to be a blast, no doubt.
Oh yeah, this is really exciting. I was here last year, Kenneth, for the Great Lakes, the Group Therapy 100 we had at Crandon, and it was just a fantastic time for all of these drivers. It was a hit. I can't wait to run it back again. I think it's going to be a blast here tonight for Bark River.
It is definitely going to be a lot of fun. And one thing to know, obviously from the top of the show when I mentioned it, we are not at Crandon. We're at a different dirt road track. This time, we're in Bark River, Michigan, United States. It's a 1.5 mile, 2.41 kilometer dirt road course circuit. And Ian, this track, I mean, of course, along with a lot of other dirt road course tracks in real life and on the iRacing surface, it really just oozes with personalities. You take a look at all of the drivers in the multiple classes we'll talk about a little bit later on, getting their warm-ups in all over the bumps and the twisty turns of it. But this track, very fun. It really doesn't allow you to relax. You're really forced to concentrate all throughout and over this entire stretch of dirt. I was about to say road, but really just dirt. It is full of twists, full of excitement, and full of a lot of things that you can look forward to as drivers for passing opportunities or just really driving the track overall.
Yeah, and as you mentioned earlier, 1.5 miles this dirt track. A very, very fast track allows our drivers to reach speeds of at least 90 miles an hour, which for dirt, as you know, is incredibly fast, Kenneth. We're in the upper peninsula of Michigan, about 15 miles southwest of Escanaba. So just some beautiful countryside as a backdrop for our drivers here. And one of the premier dirt racing tracks in the world. People have called for all over the world to compete here at Bark River. And now we're seeing it tonight on the virtual stage, Kenneth.
Well, Bark River is going to be a lot of fun, and we'll touch over all of the things that makes this track so great. When everybody starts to bump around, we'll have some contact. We'll have a lot of stuff to go in over this 100-minute race. First of all, before we get to the official format, we'll take a look at the classes. There are many different cars and trucks, technically, that we're going to be seeing over the course of tonight's race, the Shenandoah Shine Great Lakes 100. We'll start with the top of the list, the Unlimited trucks that are Pro 4 off-road trucks, Ian, very fast, 800 horsepower, 4,000 pounds. They're an absolute blast to drive. They also have their fellow Pro 2 light competitors there on the lower side, the Limited trucks. And then you have 2 Rallycross cars in it as well, the Subaru WRX STI and the Volkswagen Beetle Light. All 4 of these, a blast to drive. I've driven a couple of them, and they are really fun on many different tracks across the iRacing service. But each of these drivers is going to have their fair share of challenges with the power output, with the weight output, and everything that those cars have to bring.
Yeah, and it's really important here for all of these cars, as we see 2 cars getting together there, 3 cars getting together in practice now. We're going to see a lot of that tonight, Kenneth, is the weight to power ratio, especially with these limited cars and limited trucks. Yeah, they don't have as much horsepower as maybe the Unlimited car, the Limited truck, and the WRX and the Pro 4 truck. But the lighter weight of these trucks allows you to do different things than you can with a different truck. So it's going to be really interesting to see this race develop over the full 100 minutes, see how the dirt changes. We are going to reset to a fresh track to get this started. So you should see some of the, I would say the limited cars and limited trucks will get off to a fast start. But once the track starts to wear in, you'll see that change a little bit, Kenneth.
And we've already heard thoughts about certain drivers in the field tonight, especially about the Subaru, how it handles when things start to get a little wild on track, when it starts to wear in, and you know what happens there, how things handle, and things change over the course of time, and what's going to be more comfortable throughout. Of course, it's a format for all the cars. There's also a format for the point standings. It'll be in pretty much importance throughout this entire season. We're going to be looking at the points format, how it stands. Of course, first place in a 12-car pack. Of course, they're spread over depending on how many cars are in a class. Ian gets 1,600 points. and it trickles all the way down to 500 for the last place driver. Of course, we don't necessarily have 12 cars or trucks for each and every single class, but it is going to be points that will matter later on when we get to August, when we get to December, and when we get to all the other tracks and schedule parts of this season. It's going to matter a lot. It starts right here.
Yeah, and the points pay out a little bit differently depending on how many cars are in your class as well. So say, for example, there's only 5 cars in a class. You're going to go all the way down to the last place finisher of that class scoring 500 points, and then it'll go from there in increments of 100. So the larger class that you're in, Kenneth, it actually gives you more of a chance to battle for this championship, because the idea there is you're battling against more people. You have to beat more people, so you earn more points.
And the points obviously going to be a bragging right part when you get to Crandon later on this year on the 29th, which will be the final round of this Endurocross Series season. You're watching drivers right now get their qualifying laps underway. And of course, this is open qualifying. So all of the unlimited cars and trucks, the limited cars as well, they're out on circuit putting their best laps in. And Ian, you have a fair share of experience in this style of racing, a lot of dirt road track racing, and which you're really sliding all over the place, managing over bumps, making sure you can manage grooves and keep momentum through. What's the most important part about getting around a track like this Spark River International Raceway and keeping pace with the top runners in the field?
It's relative. It kind of depends on where you're at in the field. You know, if you're out in the front early, you really want to just get in front of everybody and try to put down as many laps as you can. As you see Connor Parise here coming around the corner in one of his limited cars, but it just depends. You want to find the blue groove as fast as you can. When that track gets worn in, you'll see what we call the blue groove. The track will start to turn a bluish color, and it's important to stay in there once, if you can. You know, obviously, if you're battling with cars and trucks, you're not going to be able to keep a perfect line. But if you want to set down those fast lap times, try to get away from the field a little bit, which we will spread out here. We're not going to be all bunched together. That's going to be the way to do it. Alternatively, it's going to be really important to manage your car in traffic. You know, you're going to be sometimes a Beetle here, as we see, you know, is going to be going against like a Pro 4 or a Pro 2 truck. And there's a big weight difference there. So you're going to have to adjust your strategy based on the cars that you're around. But as you know, Kenneth, that's just a staple of any endurance race.
And endurance racing is very different with this dirt road style, because it's not the typical road course where you look at a Daytona 24, you look at a Sebring 12-hour, you look at a Watkins Glen race where it's basically just all asphalt, so you really don't have to worry about the bumps, you don't have to worry about the swells and the crests and all the things that come with a dirt road circuit. But you do make a good point. It's an endurance race, and that means we have multi-driver teams. They're going to have different drivers come in and out of their cars throughout different parts of this 100-minute race. So we're going to have split times and drivers putting in an amount of laps. And we do have a fair share rule here, Ian. So it does mean that if you set foot into one of these trucks or cars, regardless of class, you do have to put in a certain amount of laps to make sure that you can abide by that rule and not be disqualified by any means necessary. So maybe we get to see some loopholes. Maybe drivers try something a little bit different with their teams, get creative with their strategies if they want to go for a class win or an overall win because of that rule.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the fun of endurance racing too, is we'll get to see, you know, what drivers are going to start. Do you start your fastest driver and try to get out to a big lead, or do you start your slower drivers, get them out of the way early, and then switch your faster drivers in to try to make up that time? There's a lot of different strategies here, and depending on the skill split of your drivers, you can play it so many different ways. So that's what makes it so fun and exciting here. Going off a little bit of math I did for Crandon, Kenneth, I think roughly here, if you have 2 drivers, you're going to be looking at a window of about 9 laps for that fair share rule, and if you have 3 drivers, you're looking at a roughly 6 laps there. These drivers will have to pit for fuel. Damage is off just to make sure that our unlimited cars and limited cars don't damage their engines in some of these larger jumps that are meant for the trucks. But you know, that's not going to mean we're bumping and banging and everything like that. That's just so everybody can finish the race. But that also brings in an interesting caveat too. You know that nobody's going to wreck out of this race, nobody's going to DNF, so you really got to stay on your, you can't be doing that right now. You can't be going over berms and resetting, because that's going to lose you a lot of time.
It definitely is, but at the same time, if there is no damage, maybe it incentivizes drivers to maybe be a little more risky on maybe certain moves on the inside, or maybe just trying to find track limits. And obviously, if you can find track limits, most of the time you can pick up speed and you can be faster than a lot of the others on the circuit. So maybe because of the damage, you might see some drivers push a little bit too hard, step over the limit, and end up in a wall or a barrier. But frankly, it'll be good news that they can just continue on and they won't have any problems for the rest of the enduro cross race. So right now, qualifying is slowly coming to an end, certainly about a minute and a half, give or take here, Ian, before we get to the starting grid. And we have many different drivers, many different teams. We'll talk about team names, very creative paint schemes and all that. But one group that we have to pay attention to is the drivers right now, at least the team that's leading overall, the number 21 Factory Sim Sport Unlimited Truck Pro 4 Off-Road, and that is, of course, the group Keaton Swain, Crystal King. The duo went to victory lane in the Group Therapy 100, so if there's any favorites going into this race at Bark River, those two are going to be them.
Yeah, I wouldn't say a surprise to see them in victory lane, but you know, when you look at some of the drivers that are in this field, Josh Edmondson, you know, Luke Nupp, some of these other names, some of these really big names that we have in this race tonight, Kenneth, it's interesting to see that over this course of 100 minutes, things can shake out where you might get an unusual winner like a Keaton Swain or Crystal King in there. And really that's the fun part about it, is that it gives everybody a chance to really have a large sample size and see where they're at, instead of a lot of these races that these drivers are used to. Rallycross is only 10 laps. A lot of your truck races are only 15, 14 laps. So a very, very different set of circumstances we have here tonight, as these drivers are going to be going for, again, 100 minutes. There's no lap counter, just 100 minutes of time. Pit stops, you never have to deal with pit stops. So I really love coming here to these endurocross races, Kenneth, and just seeing, you know, something that we dirt drivers don't really get to do very often, which is play strategy.
And you know, that's weird. That's weird because I come from an oval side where on the ovals you think a lot about pit road strategy and tires and fuel and how much you can make to the end of the race. Tonight we're not going to worry about that. It's all based on driver skill and positioning. That's going to be a lot of fun to cover once those guys go side by side, start lapping some others, and things will get a little bit hairy, but no doubt we'll be ready to cover all of it. Drivers right now are lined up behind the iRacing official pace truck, and that means it's our time to take a look at your starting grid, see exactly where every driver and your favorite driver, including their teams, will be starting for the Shenandoah Shine Great Lakes 100. It's the defending winners overall in the Group Therapy 100 that'll start on the front row with Keaton Swain behind the wheel of the Factory Sim Sport Unlimited truck in the 21, but they'll be joined alongside by Jim Beaver Esports with Next Level Racing and Blake Reynolds behind the wheel. Blake Reynolds, a eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series driver. Jacob Rafas will be in third in the 41 with Jim Beaver Dirtfish CBR. Team Shine Bing Bong will have Luke Canup behind the wheel for P4 on the starting grid, then followed by the 75 CXR Project Black Off-Road truck, which includes Cross Kirkmeyer behind the wheel in the top 5. P6 will belong to Team Watson Racing Pro for the win with Anthony Gaudio there in P6. P7 will be James Donahue behind the Adam's Worst Nightmare AMX number 62, and Fiercely Forward Off-Road Division will line up 13th. Josh Clogg in that group. AMX iRacing Red will have Nick Nowak in the 217 in 9th place, and rounding out the top 10, Ian, is the team with Zach Knowles.
Yeah, and then we have some iRacing employees here. Cisco Scaramuza in the 288 Pro 2 light truck. Dennis Mickelson going to be sharing a row with him in the 239 Pro 2 light truck. We're starting to see some of our limited cars here as well. Ryan Steenhoff in the 574, Brian Sawyer in the 535, both in our Beetle light category. Tom Grady, really accomplished truck driver. He's going to be rolling off in the 5th position there in his class, number 235. And then Ko Pellegrini, very, very talented, very raw rallycross driver. Just got started this year, really looking to make a name for himself out there. Got Connor Parise, also in a Beetle light. He's looking good today, and you're going to see a good run from him. Carson McKenna in the 181 car and that Fish Sport Motorsports car. And then Daniel Aish. He's going to be in the 133, starting in 3rd place in the unlimited car section. Kind of interesting. We're looking through the grid here, Kenneth, and our unlimited cars are dropping farther and farther down our starting grid as we see a Pro 2 light truck in there. And then also we have iRacing employee Chris Leone in the 116. He was the anchor of his team last year, Kenneth. We'll see if he can do it again. Marcos Palacio in the 183 will roll off at 5th place in his class in the Subaru WRX. Paul Miko Laksik is going to be the 177, John Boris, and the 569 Volkswagen Beetle. Nice. We've got Kozumi Ienesu in the 153 Subaru, and David Bush rounding out this page in the 115 Subaru. And I believe that's the rest of our started grid there, Kenneth.
Yeah, that's everybody, all 30 cars and trucks in this group, as it looks like we've already got the green flag, and Factory Sim Sport with Keaton Swain already jumps out front through the first couple of corners. It's a big field, a lot of drivers circling through different classes, but so far the Unlimited trucks proving to be the strongest already in the first handful of twists and turns. So far, Jacob Rafoss is going to try to find a way to defend against Blake Reynolds, and so far it looks like the top three have spread apart. Luke Up, Cross Kirkmeyer, the first battle really between the first Unlimited truck class.
Yeah, we're seeing these Unlimited trucks get out to an early lead. Really doesn't surprise me, Kenneth. We are at a truck track. This track is made for these trucks, and this is what these trucks do in real life here at Bark River. Racing up here in Michigan's Upper Peninsula as we see a battle here between Keaton Swain and Jakob Rafoss. I think this is going to be a battle we're watching for a while. Jakob Rafoss has been really hot this year, Kenneth. He's been winning every single rallycross race, almost, it seems like, that I do commentary for. And he's not going to give Keaton Swain any breaks here as we see him battling coming back to turn 12.
You know what? It's a long race, obviously 100 minutes. We've reiterated it over as they head over the bumps there, and we'll head over this left-hander as the 21 will continue in the lead. But it looks like many of them already racing like this is their last shot to get track position. And so far, it looks like at least through first through fourth in the Unlimited truck class have found themselves single file. Really, the first side-by-side action you'll see is around P6 in that first class. That's Josh Klog in the 13 for Fiercely Forward Off-Road Division, and Team Watson Racing's Pro for the win, Anthony Gaudio behind the wheel of that 39. And he'll actually make the crossover there, so maybe slide in for P6. A nice solid move there already, as it's one of the first handful of changes in track position we see over the first couple of laps. What's really surprising here, and you pointed it out in the starting grid, is that we're seeing a lot of cars and trucks in either the Unlimited and Limited class being rather close together. The first Volkswagen Beetle Light, which by the way has the least amount of horsepower in this entire class structure, they're running P11 overall, and they're ahead of a couple of Pro 2 trucks, and also obviously the Subaru WRXs, which may come in shape later on in this race. There's a look at Zach Knowles in the 599, who's leading that limited car class in P11 with Greg Johnson behind him. So already in this fresh track, we've got a lot of pace out of some of the slower cars, which you wouldn't really expect to be up here.
Yeah, and the Beetle Lights are a little bit more nimble as well. They're a little bit easier to navigate around these tight corners and bumps and everything. I will say I was running some practice laps in the Subaru this week, and the Subaru has some weird parts where you're coming around the corners where it just keeps sliding, and there's not really much you can do about it. It's just kind of the long wheelbase compared to the Volkswagen Beetle there, Kenneth. And there's not much you can do about the slide, and you just got to really wait until that track wears in, and then you can start making your moves. But if you're in our Unlimited car class right now, as we see two of our trucks battling here up front, Limited trucks battling up front, is you're going to have to wait for that track to come in. You're going to have to play the long game. You know, if you're somebody up front, you're trying to get in front, get as many positions as you can. But if you're one of these drivers towards the back, you want to sit back, get yourself in a nice groove where you can operate and lay down some consistent times.
And that's something different from a lot of the asphalt racing. Usually in the road courses and especially the ovals, when you run long runs in those certain races with whatever car you have on track, yeah, the track will wear out. It will get dynamic a little bit, but it's not as big of a difference as these dirt circuits where on the oval and on the road side, once you start putting laps in and once there is a clear-cut line of where everybody wants to run, it'll start to slicken out, as it looks like the battle for first in the limited truck class just got hairy because one of the Subarus just went off-road on the other side of the track. There's no wall there, Ian, when they converge, they're around the same part of the track, so they got really close. And that car right there, Daniel Eisch in the 133, and that Subaru WRX STI almost got in the way of the battle for the limited truck lead. That could have been very, very close.
Yeah, and Daniel Age is a very talented driver back in Australia. He used to be a motocross rider, so he has no, the dirt is no stranger to him, but it's so easy to do that coming over that jump. That is a massive jump for our cars. It's definitely a jump that's made for trucks, but for cars, you're in the air for a very long time, and if you oversend that jump, it's actually very easy to get off on that left-hand side and flip over onto the track that's going in the opposite direction, Kenneth. So it's something you want to avoid, but it's also something that is very, very easy to do as well.
You know what, frankly, I'm glad that I'm not a driver out here because I do not know how to drive dirt to save my life, so I would be over those bumps like it's no tomorrow. But nonetheless, we've got all the good drivers out here on the track as you continue to watch this great battle in the limited truck class. AMX iRacing Red, Nick Nowak behind the wheel of that 217 truck, 9th overall, but first in class. And then Taylor Vandenbush in the AMX iRacing White truck in the 26, battling and following suit just behind, trying to put a little bit of the pressure there at the moment. But at least it looks for the most part, they haven't really traded any positions whatsoever. AMX iRacing, they come off of a limited truck win in the Group Therapy 100 with Anthony Janes and Taylor Vandenbush in that group, as well as Nick Nowak. All three of those guys were in that group there at Crandon. So no surprise to see AMX iRacing doing well in the limited truck class here at Bark River.
Yeah, and if you're one of these teams that won last year, I mean, what greater way to cement yourself in a championship conversation than to come away with the group win or the class win in this race, Kenneth? I think it's a real important way to set the tone early. Might be a very obvious statement, but we've only got 3 races in this championship, so every single one of these races are going to count. You're not going to get a drop race, and it's not like you can take 1 or 2 races to you know, oh, I didn't have a good race this week or I didn't have a good race that week. No, you got to go and get all these positions that you possibly can. So yeah, really nice to see the AMX trucks up front after their strong run last year in the Group Therapy 100.
So you continue to watch the battle for the lead in this limited truck class. And by the way, I forgot to mention it just a little bit earlier in tonight's broadcast, but if you do want to know which driver is where, obviously we've got the different trucks and cars to show out on track, but there is a difference in car and truck number based on what class and what structure each of the drivers are in. If you're in the unlimited truck class, the Pro 4 off-road trucks, you're going to have a number, you can have 00 to 09, or you'll have a number between 1 and 99. So really they're going to be the only double-digit numbers you'll see in this entire 100-minute race. And then the unlimited cars will have numbers from 100 to 199. Limited trucks will have 200 to 299. And then the limited car class, which should be the slowest in horsepower factors, the Volkswagen Beetle Light, that class will have numbers from 500 to 599. And there is the most extreme number that one of the teams have taken, the A team. Zach Knowles behind the wheel. They're leading the limited car class with the Volkswagen Beetle Light just in front of Grave Johnson. They haven't really traded places nor have really moved across the track, and they're just ahead of the battle between Dennis Mickelson and Connor Parise, which is for different class positions, but they're just all together on the same portion of the track. So that's where you can tell who's where and who's in what class fighting for what position as you continue to watch the leader there, Zach Knowles, take position. Here's a look at one of the Subarus on track.
Yeah, and this looks like the Subaru of Carson McKenna in our 1 Fishport, 2 Fishport team. They got another car out there, the red Fishport, blue Fishport team, going off that Dr. Seuss theme. If you get a look on the side there, you can see some of the Dr. Seuss characters. Kenneth, I'll be honest with you here. I'm a little bit biased with these 2 cars because these are my 2 cars. I painted these 2 cars, and it's really good to see these guys out here running well. You know, this is an event that we're competing in and everything like that, but I really hope that all the drivers are having a great time so far, because this has been a blast for you and me in the booth so far. Also, something to touch on as well, you were talking about those classes, the car numbers. All these cars here as well, fixed setups. So not all the setups are same to, like, you know, the trucks and the Beetles obviously have different setups, but all the Beetles have the same setups. All the unlimited cars, all the limited cars, they have the same setups. So it really comes down to driver skill and how you can wheel the car. Can't really get yourself an advantage with gearing or anything like that. But look at this battle right here, Kenneth.
This is fantastic racing. That is Jakob Rafos there in the unlimited truck class. And look at that pass there by Kean Swain. Used one of the Subarus as a pick to get to the outside. I believe that was Chris Leone there in the Jim Beaver Esports Vision Wheel Subaru WRX. And he's going to slam into the back of one of the Fishport cars, and that car is going to go all the way around, almost out. It's Marcos Palacio in the 183. He'll go for a slide. They are bullying their way through the field. Look at that, 3 wide for the overall lead.
Yeah, and that's just, it's something that's going to happen once we start having lap traffic and just this endurance racing. Is if you're these trucks battling 3 wide and you come down on a car, something's got to give. I mean, there's no way that all 3 of you are getting by. A hallmark of Yes 2 Motorsport here is lap car middle. I think we're going to see a lot of that tonight, Kenneth.
Yeah, there were some jokes in the voice chat earlier tonight between us and some of the guys there, Chris Leone, Matt Kalish, and Josh Edmondson about those shirts, Shenandoah Shine, all that stuff. But you continue to watch the top three scuffle between each other. And by the way, it was not looking like this at the opening drop of the green, because Jakob Rafas and Keaton Swain were really the only two battling for the overall lead. But they've brought in the 5 of Luke Canup for Team Shine, Bing Bong in the number 5. And right now, seemingly keeping behind the top 2, but still putting their name in the ring regardless. And Luke Canup, a driver that I recognize, quite frankly, because he raced in the Monday Night Racing Road to Glory series. So if you watch any of that and you see those drivers there, Luke Canup was one of them in the championship for that campaign. As he works on one of the Volkswagen Beetles, they're going to go for a big flip, and that's Jakob Rafas up and over.
Oh man, and see, we don't have damage on for these cars, Kenneth, but if you get stuck upside down like that, unfortunately, the only thing you can do is reset. So really, incidents aren't that big of a deal here. Your damage is going to fix, but if you roll over, if you go off track, if you go out of the track bounds, you can still reset. And now, bam, they're out of that battle. It's a two-way battle now for the lead with our Shenandoah Shine and our, I think it's a factory sim sport truck here of Keaton Swain battling as the onboard shot now with Shenandoah Shine. Special thanks to them too for helping us put on this event, Kenneth. Really just awesome to see them out here and supporting iRacing as much as they do.
And definitely so. Shenandoah Shine have been a great partner piece in iRacing. Of course, they sponsored Shenandoah Shine S-Rock, as it was known, with the old Legacy Gen 6 Cup cars on the oval side of things. Had a lot of Coke Series drivers in there, had a lot of Pro Series drivers in there. It was just a lot of fun there. So cool to see Shenandoah Shine get into this group Therapy 100, or at least what is now known as the Great Lakes 100 here at Bark River, and putting their effort into sponsoring the entire race. So it was Norman Pelletier III for 21 Salvage, arguably my favorite team name of the entire race in the 507. That's the Volkswagen Beetle Light Class Limited car. It just had a great view of the fight for the race lead between Keaton Swain and Jakob Rafas. And now an update on Rafas. He's fallen to 26 overall. Has fallen obviously to deep in 8th in the class. So Rafas getting damage repair, or at least just trying to make sure the truck gets operable on pit road. That's going to be big, and that's another thing that touches on a big difference between the normal rallycross and dirt road races versus an endurance style, is that you're going to have to deal with the plethora of lap cars, and that's something that these guys sometimes have issues with, because they're going side by side. They're trying to get the best line as they possibly can, and when there's a car in the middle that's way slower, it's harder to avoid them overall.
Yeah, way harder to avoid them overall, and just something that you don't necessarily deal with very often as a dirt racer. You know, in iRacing, sometimes you'll get into an official race where you have somebody crashed out and you're going to have to get around them, but that's one or two cars, Kenneth. Here, we're talking about the entire field. You touched on your oval experience. It's almost being at some place like Martinsville or Bristol or another short track like that, where, yeah, we're a mile and a half here, but these cars can close the gap fast, and then you're just in a conveyor belt of lap cars, and if you're in the lead, you got to be really good at navigating your way through this traffic if you want to hold on to that lead, because that's what we saw earlier in the three-way battle between Nup, Swain, and Jakob Rafas. The lap traffic was a factor, and it was the reason why all three of those cars were able to get together. And then unfortunately Rafas took the bad end of that battle, but it's so important to navigate this lap traffic as the night goes on.
Well, you're watching a good battle right now as one of the cars just went off of track. That was a Volkswagen Beetle Light. That was Kyle Baldessano in the turquoise torpedoes that went off circuit, but it was in the midst of this fight right now for what is P4 and overall 13th here in the limited truck class, as they door, or at least bang doors there going into this left-hander and back up to one of the bumpiest parts of the circuit. That's a 235 TG Racing. That's Tom Grady there behind the wheel trying to chase down Team Rick. Cisco Scaramuza also has Keenan Kusan alongside to take step in behind the wheel once he comes down pit road. And we had a camera look with Cisco Scaramuza as he was going across the entirety of the bump. So he's holding on to 4. That got really close there between himself and Tom Grady. And there's a look from Grady's perspective in the 235 as he chases down and as Scaramuza gets through another lap car.
Yeah, Tom Grady, not to be confused with Tom Brady, by the way. You can see there, it's obviously not Tom Brady. But, you know, that happens a lot. You know, he, announced his retirement, but he came back. He came back, or Kenneth, and he's here racing. And, really good to see him out in the trucks. He races a lot in our Vors Pro Truck Leagues, and he's trying to make a run this year, I think, for that Truck World Championship that's coming up soon. So very talented racer here in Tom Grady. No surprise to see him up in the field, but we also saw him earlier in the lap having some trouble with the back end coming out. Really hard going over those whip sessions, especially making a turn to keep that back end straight and keep the power down.
Yeah, Tom Brady and Tom Grady. I think I'm going to get that confused a lot throughout this entire race. But nonetheless, you continue to watch many of the drivers come in through the field. And we do have some that are on pit road. It looks like Team Watson Racing Bug Life with Greg Johnson behind the wheel. They've gone on pit road. They're second in the limited car class. And now they're going to bring in Brian Clement in the 539. So Brian is going to come out here. He just exited pit road, so he is one of the first driver changes we see in this Great Lakes 100. So Ian, we're going to be seeing a lot of that over the next at least handful of laps, or over the next hour and a half. Really, we're going to see many drivers obviously switch places on pit road, and obviously many of them abiding by that fair share rule, just completing their amount of laps, and they're good. That's what we saw with second place there and Team Watson.
Yeah, and then you're going to start seeing some of the strategy play out with these driver changes and with these pit stops. You can replace your fuel, replace your tires. You do have to take fuel in this race, so that is an important thing as well. So some of these stops we might see aren't going to be driver swaps necessarily, but I think the first stop you'll see here, we'll see some driver swaps. And something that's really cool about these driver swaps, Kenneth, is we're able to bring some of our drivers that are actually racing in the event into the booth, get their perspective on things. So we're actually going to bring our friend Chris Leone, an iRacing employee, into the booth right now. Chris, how are you tonight? How was your first stint out there, bud?
I can't believe I put us in the lead.
That is, hey,
bizarre.
Living up to your moniker as the anchor. Just holding it down for everybody else.
That's not the word. That's not the way that we use that word, and you all know it.
Well. So I do have a question, though, because we call you the anchor all the time, right? But as you know, an anchor needs to have a chain to be effective. So who would you consider the chain of your team?
What is the third option? What goes with the anchor and the chain? Is that the boat? Is that the thing that's actually fast?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. What does an anchor connect to? I think there's like an anchor. Anchor?
I'm gonna say that Matt's the chain because he took over from me, and Dave's the boat because Dave will be fastest. How about that?
Dave Bodio. I like it. Dave Bodio. It makes sense.
I didn't even mean to do that, but here we are.
Yeah, that happens a lot. So, I mean, Chris, this is your second time putting on an endurance race, and now you've gone, one step further, now putting on the whole Endurocross season here. What are your expectations out of all of this?
A lot of hurt feelings and a lot. No. We have no expectations because this is a completely just outlandish idea. The concept was, hey, we don't have desert racing on the sim. What is the closest thing that we can do to desert racing? And it became, okay, let's take all these different off-road vehicles that we've got and see how many of them we can stick on a track in different classes and do driver changes and all sorts of other good stuff and just see what happens. And what we've got is this. We had 37 entries when we did group therapy at Crandon, which I think was aided a little bit by the name. Unfortunately, I couldn't come up with an equal watering hole in the Bark River area that I thought was funny enough to match up. So we went with a more serious Great Lakes 100 name, but yeah, just kind of, these seemed popular. People wanted to do more of them, so we said, what the hell, let's do one every 4 months because that's not frequent enough to kill the enjoyment for everybody. It'll keep them fun still, and people will still, I think, want to do more of them, so that's kind of how this all came about. Just out of all the other various goofy stuff that we've been doing. And it's been a blast. It's fun personally for me to be able to do events where I can hand off the car in the lead because I use like 3% throttle per lap, and we can pit way deeper than everyone. But it's always really interesting to see who actually does well on these because there's no playbook, there's no experience. By the end of the race, the track is in a completely unrecognizable state to everybody. So, yeah, just a lot of fun and a lot of goofy, just trying things out and seeing what happens.
Well, I mean, you say that you're just trying things out and we'll see what happens. And I hate to pump your tires a little bit here, but we know that you do work in real life with the Mint 400 on a lot of other off-road events. I think this might be a little bit of taking your passion to iRacing. Is that correct, Chris?
Maybe just a skosh. I mean, it's certainly having the experience working in the off-road world definitely helps, because there's ideas, there are concepts where you know what works, and there are concepts where you know what doesn't work. And the idea is just try to take as many of those things that do work and avoid the things that don't, and then try things that nobody's tried before. Certainly this is a series that I think people would have a lot of fun with if we did it in like a week 13 setting. Hint, hint, if my bosses are watching. Certainly as a solo thing, I've had a few people ask me if we can do solo events like this, and I'll have to entertain it. But the idea of doing a points championship too was just, okay, this is going to be totally bizarre if we try it, but I think it's going to be bizarre in a funny way, because there's going to be like 19 different possible ways to win a championship. We wrote a stupidly long set of tiebreakers that has like 10 different options, so there's no way we come up with a tie. But yeah, just, I don't know, you got to break eggs to make an omelet. We did that with IRX for 3 years, and we got some of the biggest rallycross teams in the world to do it, and we got some of the biggest real-world drivers to run all-star events and stuff, and why not do the same thing here?
Yeah, and Chris, I'm lucky enough to be able to help you out with some of these events, but I gotta say, when you dropped Vortex on me, it was quite a surprise, as we see some trucks pitting now. We've had some trucks pitting while you've been talking, Chris. We're seeing that first round of pit stops. But really, when you dropped this Vortex on me, I wasn't even expecting it at all, but just so exciting to be here, and really appreciate you putting it together. Kenneth, you got any questions for our friend Chris here?
Well, I think I'm just going to pose a question to what's happening out on the racetrack, because Matt Kalish is taking control, and he's in a fight with Alexander Abedi in the 183. When you're out of the car, are you kind of like the cheerleader for your team? Do you try to give some moral support to them? How do you approach that when you're out of the car and just waiting for your next stint?
So as the guy who's promoting the events, I have to look at it probably a little differently from everybody else, because on the one hand, yes, I try to be as much as I can, but I'm also in session taking as many screenshots as I can and trying to get a good view on everybody, certainly making sure the second that I get out of the car, I jump in the booth so you guys have some relief. It definitely depends for everybody, but for the most part, everybody seems to be really good about being cheerleaders. And certainly, hopefully the team owners don't come into fisticuffs after Matt just muscled by. You're going to have to separate us in the booth, Kenneth, because I think Fish is going to come after me after that one.
You know what? The elbows are out, I think, for everyone in this track, so I don't think there are any exceptions. But Chris, as Kalish works by for a second in your Gene Beaver esports machine, well, we certainly appreciate you taking the time with Ian and I up in the broadcast booth. And of course, we wish the best of luck for you and your team, and of course this entire series for these sort of off-road, dirt road, endurance cross events, whatever you want to call it by name. We certainly hope that there are more of these in the future, and more people join in on the fray. It looks like a lot of fun, and I know I wouldn't be a good driver, but it's been awesome to broadcast so far. So appreciate your time, Chris, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thanks, Kenneth. I mean, I will tell you, I am the worst driver in the 30 people that are in that voice channel, and I handed off the car in the lead. So it's really not about being a good driver at all in this series. Again, I think I used 3% throttle half of those laps, and we just went way deeper into the pit cycle because I drive like a coward. But it's interesting. Like I said, there's no book on this. Nobody does this enough to have any idea really what they're doing. It's just, if you have some off-road experience, you try to translate it. But we got a lot of guys who don't. We have GT racers show up sometimes. We have Blake Reynolds here. We have an eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series driver doing this, and Blake can drive anything, but Blake doesn't do this all the time, lot of different guys adapting. Certainly Justin Melillo and Cosman, they've teamed up. They're not known as dirt road guys. It's just about being fun for everybody. And yeah, we won't have another team event until August 25th with the Sierra Nevada 100, where we're going to do this at Wild West before we go back to Crandon for some more group therapy in December. But we certainly, with Yes 2 Motorsport on Thursday nights, we will definitely do more of this alongside Tiny Truck, alongside some of the other fun, goofy, different ideas that we've got, up our sleeves for the rest of the year. So other Thursday nights, we usually race a little earlier than this, but by all means, come check it out. Come request to join the league. We're about 350 strong right now, so come do it. Come have fun.
Well, it certainly looks like a lot of fun out on track right now. And I know for sure I have August 25th and December 29th circled on my calendar now. Even after watching the first little bit of this race, it looks like it's only going to get better when we get to Wild West and we get to Crandon in round 2 and round 3. So, yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. But you were talking about Blake Reynolds there. Got into an incident, and he tagged the fence, got stuck, and had to hit the tow button. So Reynolds now falls, I believe, actually down to P10 overall, 7th in class. So he's going to fall off just a little bit as Luke Knupp continues to lead. But, yeah, I mean, so much fun here, Chris. And watching your team, I mean, watching these cars, watching the difference. How crazy is it to watch the differences between the trucks that have a lot of power and the Subarus and the Volkswagens and the Pro 2s? How is it to watch the dynamic in traffic between all of them based on their characteristics?
So my favorite part about this, I think, is at the beginning of the race versus the end of the race, everything changes. At the beginning, the trucks are the fastest, and they're always going to be, if they're not the fastest, the Pro 4s, they're going to be close. But as the track wears in more and more, the tires from the end of the GRC era, which is where these rallycross cars are from, they are a lot closer to slicks than you would expect from when you would think of a rallycross tire. That's just what we did in that era of GRC because our tracks were 80% pavement and they called for it. As a result, the more and more worn in the dirt gets, the faster and faster the Subaru is going to get, and the faster and faster the Beetle Light is going to get. I think when we did this at Crandon, the Beetle Light may have actually been the fastest at the end. But what ends up happening is these cars that lose so many laps at the beginning, they'll start making them up at the end. And, the issue with the fuel tanks is they are rallycross fuel tanks, so there's not really much of a chance for the Subaru or for the Beetle Light to actually go take an overall win. But, stranger things can happen. I mean, Cam Peterson and Brandon Proudfoot carried me and my anchor backside to 6th overall when we did this at Crandon. So, surprises can definitely happen. People can absolutely overachieve in the cars, but they will get faster as we get to the end of the race and as we get to a super worn-in track. So that's definitely something to look for. You'll start seeing them be able to pass the trucks as we start getting to the last half an hour here.
And when we work through the rest of the hour and 12 minutes that we have, as it officially clicks down to 0 on the second counter, you see one of the Volkswagen Beetle Lights go off course. Yeah, we're going to see more of the mix-up because right now the Unlimited trucks have been dominant, but the next car after who's leading a class is one of the Volkswagen Beetle Lights, who going into this race has negative horsepower compared to the limited trucks and the Unlimited car and the Unlimited truck in the classes in front of it. So there is miracle there is the greatness of these dirt road races in which somebody can make a mistake, some chaos happens, and all of a sudden you have one of the slowest cars and one of the lightest ones being the fastest here out on track. As you look at Connor Paris, who is yet to evacuate out of his Beetle. He's leading this limited car class, and he is 7th overall. A very good run for him so far.
Oh, definitely. And like I said, I mean, Cam and I were actually going to team up in that car again, and then Cam had the even funnier idea of pairing me up with Matt Kalish in the 116, because Matt and I go way back, way before either of us ever started in motorsport. He went to Syracuse University. I had a buddy who was out there, and we ended up hitting it off, hanging out in college. You know, when I'd take bus trips to Boston to hang out with our other buddy. You know, so I was joking, like, no, you can't put me in a car with Matt. He'll kick my ass when I bin it. And yet Matt was complaining all week that he was just tearing up the car left, right, and center in practice. And I'm just like, dude, you're fine. Just back it down a little bit and you'll be fine. But we've definitely had a lot of fun with the concept. And I know one of the things that JBE likes to do with these events is pair up different guys every time, or purposely pair up guys who don't normally work together. That's what happened last time with this car. Dave actually shared it with Josh Edmondson, who is running up, it looks like 7th in class with the unlimited truck for JBE. You know, but everybody ended up switching everything around. Keith Jeffrey couldn't make this one, so Connor Berry teamed up with Jacob Raffos this time. Josh moved up to the truck with Blake. Dave wasn't actually sure if he was going to make this, so that's why we're the 3-person team. And then Cam and Connor with their highly unpronounceable team name. So that was kind of the strategy, and I think a lot of other teams did that as well. I think AMX refreshed their driver lineups from what they did at Group Therapy. Certainly Team Shine, the Shenandoah Shine guys, they changed things up a little bit. Luke was paired with somebody else last time, and Scott Bryant was paired with somebody else last time. We had a lot of changes, you know, and I think that's part of the fun of an event like this. You know, the Pretend Racing Online guys as well, nobody working together this time worked together in Group Therapy. So, you know, that's part of the fun of this. You race with people who you don't normally race with or share a car with. And, you know, that also sort of shortens things up and changes things up and, you know, really makes it a blast to do these things. And to kind of have a triple crown of it with Vortex, you know, the goal is definitely, if you see this thing, come hang out with us on Thursday nights. And yeah, we won't be doing this again until August, but we do a lot of other goofy stuff. Certainly Tiny Truck. I think I'll entertain the idea of doing more of the rallycross cars on short road courses, because it's like a touring car race with a forced pit stop. But I think Fish has some PTSD from the last time.
I was going to say, are you sure? Are you sure you want to do that again? I was just about to bring that up. Do you want to go back to Orin Park? We can make it happen again.
we certainly can. I think you owe me 2 after Matt drove through your driver too. So I guess please no Punterino, Ian. Please no Punterino.
Actually, that's something I did want to touch on, though, Chris, is, you know, we talk about all these guys, and we're blessed to have guys here like Connor Parise, you know, Blake Reynolds, all these guys, some of these real high-end drivers in iRacing in their respective disciplines. But this event is really for everybody, too, Chris. A guy like me, if they really wanted to, who before I came up in the booth, I was going to be racing this event, too, can go out and race. Anybody can go out and race. There's no restrictions on iRating or anything like that, safety rating. Come out here, have a good time, get yourself on a track with some of these good drivers. Who knows, maybe you learn something from it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think my final count was there were 75 drivers on the entry list. I think we had one vehicle not show up, but still 30 cars and trucks for this thing. I mean, that's nothing to sneeze at. It's very cool how the community has really just kind of embraced this, how a lot of the off-road people have embraced these races, how a lot of, you know, people who don't do off-road at all have embraced these races. I mean, having Aero and having Cisco, you know, all the Team Rick guys did the first one. They couldn't all make it this time, so it's just Team Rick with the CK capitalized this time around, I guess. But, you know, I mentioned Justin and Cosman, who normally go by Speed Inc., but are cognizant of their off-road status and have gone with some alternate branding this time around. You know, it's one of those things where, yeah, this really is for everybody. I don't care if you've been an eNASCAR Championship 4 driver like Blake has, or if you can't drive your way out of a wet paper bag like me. You know, it's just come out and have fun. You know, it's super hard. I mean, obviously we take the driving seriously and that we respect everybody, but the visuals are admittedly a little hard to take seriously. I mean, this does look ridiculous, right? It's in the best of ways, but still.
It still looks cool though. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it's about. Like it's about just bizarre fun. Big dumb fun is what I like calling it. That's kind of what I like to do because it's, and I'm not gonna get on my pedestal for too long, but sim racing's about fun. We do this stuff because it's fun. This event exists because the idea was fun. Like, you know, if you're not having fun at doing this, I remember the first video game that I got. It was NASCAR 99. I didn't ever imagine when I was an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, whatever age I was when I got that game, I forget. I could have never imagined at that age that that we'd be doing this, you know, when I got to my 30s. Like, holy crap, you know? It's so cool what we get to do. It's so cool, you know, the fact that we've got people racing from multiple continents in this race, in multiple vehicles, unlike anything that you see in sim racing in general. Like, have fun with just with sim racing in general, because if it's a grind, I mean, you know, we're doing this because we love it. And you got to keep that mindset. And an event like this, where it's so obviously distinct from anything that would ever happen in the real world, you know, that's what an event like this is for, to put the fun back in what we're doing. You know, there's always all sorts of drama as far as the community goes, and there's people who want to get upset about stuff. And, you know, and I got no time for that, you know? Like, we're here to have fun. If you don't have fun doing this, there's a million different things that you could do that are fun. And you don't, you know, I don't know. I've preached too much already. I think you guys get my point. Like, put the fun back in sim racing. That's what we try to do with everything Yes2 Motorsport, but it's damn sure what we do with this.
Yeah, and you know, you touched on a little bit earlier now as you ride on board some of these drivers, you know, Matt Kalish here, and in front of them we see that motorsport car of Daniel Aish and Conan Erd. They're both Australian. So yeah, like you said, anybody from different continents. We've got some Danes in here, we've got Argentinians, we've got Americans, we have all kinds of people from all over the world racing in this event, just like real off-road racing at Bark River here, Kenneth.
Yeah, that's the great thing about sim racing overall, and I think the great thing about overall racing in general is that you can have so many different people, so many different cultures, so many different places in the world that they come from, and they just have the same goal. They want to win, they want to race, they want to have fun, and that's the thing that Chris, you know, and us we've been talking about, just the funness of all of this racing and the group, everybody getting together and coming for this common goal of just racing here on dirt road with whatever car or truck they want to race with, whoever they want to race with. You see one of the Subarus bump off circuit for just a slight moment there, but yeah, just the diversity of sim racing overall, and having the ability to have each and every type of person get on track and do whatever they want to and just have fun.
Yeah, an interesting line there for Kalish, Chris. Did you were you guys working on that in practice? That line that he took there?
That's not me, man. I when I handed the car off to Matt to let him drive, I just let Matt drive, you know.
Now, can we get a little bit of strategy here? Matt's coming in for the stop now, Chris. Are we doing a driver swap? What are we doing here? 4 tires and 2?
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, that's a very good question. I don't know. I haven't actually. All I talked with strategy was I am handing off the car the second that I'm handing off the car the second that I finish my first stint, and then we're just going from there.
Well, doing your best, Parker Klingerman there, being our pit reporter. Chris, really appreciate you being in the booth with us tonight, you know, killing some time with us, and then also just putting on this whole event and Yes2 Motorsports in general. I'll vouch for him. It's so much fun on Thursday night, some track and car combinations you don't really ever get to try on iRacing. You know, do something different than just your straight oval racing, your straight road racing. Coming down the Yes2 Motorsport, give it a shot. I'm sure you're going to like it. Chris, thanks a lot for your time.
Yeah, for sure. Appreciate you guys. I got to bounce.
Yeah, take care, buddy.
Thank you.
And Kenneth, I mean, it's so awesome that we have Chris here and these employees of iRacing that you got to think about it. They work all day long to put this game, and it is a game. I know some people are going to give me a hard time for that, but to put this game on for us to enjoy, and then they come home at night and then put on events like this for us. So really appreciative of Chris, just everybody who's able to put this event together. Shenandoah shine. As we go back to the racing, I think you and I could finally talk about racing a little, Kenneth.
Yes, sir. And to touch on what you said about Chris there, I mean, it's awesome to see the iRacing employees be so involved in the sim racing community. A lot of times you see it, bigger esports, bigger games where, you know, the devs and the people that are involved on the employee side of things, they aren't really connected to the community that run the games, that play them, and obviously have fun with them with their friends or whoever they end up playing it with. But here on iRacing, because, you know, you've got people like Chris and all the people on the dev side and all that, they're able to really be close with the sim racing community and tell them, and, you know, put events like this and just try to bring out the best in what is right now a rather niche esport. As it looks like Cameron Peterson just went up and over. The Connor Parise came out of that car. That's the leading car, by the way, Ian, in that limited car Volkswagen class, and Peterson has just gone for a tumble, and that may hand off the lead to Zach Knowles in the Ed team, who's tailing behind in second.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what he's doing there. Just maybe he's hoping for someone to come over and give him a tap, flip him back onto his wheels. But yeah, he's still sitting there, and yeah, Knowles is coming quick. Might take the lead of this limited car class.
And Knowles is already picking up pace. He was 11th overall. He still has at least one truck in between himself and Peterson. Now it is officially slimmed down to 0 as Peterson continues to try and hope for somebody to flip him over. Here comes Knowles now across the left-hander, gets through the bumps rather calmly, and that's a pass for the class lead. I don't think we were expecting it in that format, Ian, but yet again, this is dirt road, this is Bark River, this is off-road racing, so really anything can happen in track position. And Zach Knowles, I think they're going to be happy knowing they've got control of their limited car class, at least for the next 58 minutes if they can hold it.
Yeah, but it's so important too. We've seen drivers get in and make a mistake. I mean, one reset, it's going to set you back quite a bit because you have all of that towing time, and then you might as well take a pit stop while you're there. So that's going to be at least 2 minutes, I would say, in pit road if you have to reset. So that is something that is a factor in these races, having to reset, getting in incidents, trying to keep the car clean. It could help your position as much as being fast, Kenneth.
We've seen a couple of cars and trucks get into some little shenanigans, and I mentioned it earlier while we were talking to Chris Leone. Blake Reynolds, who is in the unlimited truck class, has now moved up in the JBE next level racing truck to P7 overall in their class. Went into the fence and got stuck in it and had to tow back to pit road. That was a funny sight to see. He got stuck in the fence and then couldn't get out of it. So Reynolds now back in it. There's a look at Blake Reynolds, one of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series drivers, and Chris had pointed it out in the diversity that does include some of the stock car racing's best in sim racing taking part in an off-road race. And there's a look at Blake as he comes through the corner. He's 7th overall in the class, has yet to find another mate up in front to battle with, but I think it's a solid recovery so far from being stuck in the fence a couple laps ago.
Yeah, and you know you got time. You still got 57 minutes, ticking down to 56 minutes in this race. Just run some laps, you know what I mean? It's everybody's very talented, but, you know, we are racing hard in a sim race here. You can almost bet on at least one reset from your competitors in this event. You can kind of see that and know that it's going to happen. So if you're in a position like Blake, as we see another one of the Fishport cars having a little bit of trouble here, waiting for the rest of the field to pass him by before he rejoins the track, if you do have trouble, the best you could do is just keep racing and hope for the best, really, Kenneth. That's all you can do.
And that's the thing that happened with Knowles there, the pass for the lead. I mean, that wasn't really because of they were battling side by side and one driver was running better laps than the other. It's just that one of them was holding in consistent, and then just somebody makes a mistake, and then boom, you've got track position when you really didn't expect it to come to your favor. So, I mean, that's a good point. Even if, you know, things are not going the best, if things aren't going your way, it's a long race, and there are mistakes that can happen to the drivers in front of you, and there could be strategy plays that go awry, driver changes that don't happen in the right place, right time. Because I think you and I, Ian, know about it. In endurance racing, even on the asphalt side, when you make a plan of which driver is going to race in which stint, that plan usually never goes right. It always changes. There's always somebody that has a problem, or somebody that can't make a time slot, or somebody has a connection problem, somebody has a hardware failure. Like, there are many factors in endurance racing that can really throw teams off of their scheduled plans. So just running laps is really all you've got, and just trying to be as consistent as possible, because really anything can change in a matter of moments. And also barring the fact that that's asphalt and this is off-road dirt.
Yeah, this is dirt. And, talking about dirt, I mentioned the blue groove earlier. We're starting to see that come in a little bit, Kenneth. You can see the wear on the track, but you see these sections where the cars are really getting into it. You can see some of these trucks are going up and maybe trying to find some fresh dirt to find a little bit more speed now. Once the track is worn in, that's when you're starting to see these Subarus have a bit of an advantage, getting a little bit more tire down on the dirt. But then also you're going to see some of these truck guys stick to that blue groove, but then also try to find speed elsewhere in the track here, as we get a great shot from our blimp, our Shenandoah Shine blimp here on the 116 car. You can really see how that track is starting to wear in from a top-down perspective, Kenneth.
And it's Matt Kalish there, of course, for JBE and Vision Wheel. Of course, Chris Leone, a part of that team with Kalish, and the 116 is leading the class, but he's watching a great battle, which is in his class. It's just a couple more positions behind. It happened between the 115 Lunatic Racing with Colin McKenzie and Cosmin Yunishu in the 153 for Slow Incorporated. And that's a team also with Justin Malillo, the 153. They were in a battle between each other, but McKenzie got the best of it. Actually, no, McKenzie had an issue with the wall, so there goes the 153 by. And again, they will continue to remain within each other's grasp as the leader of the class looks forward at the both of them and says, hey, you guys are battling for at least 4th or 5th. Well, I'm in the lead. I don't got to worry about all that.
Yeah, you guys just keep battling. I'm just going to keep over here doing my thing, right? Yeah, that's exactly what he's thinking right now, watching these two drivers battle. But really good job there by the Lunatic Racing driver. That was a bit of a slip up, but really wasn't too bad. Minimize the mistakes, minimize the time lost. I think he's going to be able to chase him down again.
So some updates here on some driver changes. 21 Salvage in the 507. That is one of the limited car Volkswagen Beetle class cars. Don Runkle Jr. is now going to be taking helm of that. Looks like Connor Berry is going to get behind the wheel of the 41, the Jim Beaver Dirtfish CBR car. That's the 41, which is an unlimited truck in the top class. As once again, you take a look at the Lunatic Racing with Colin McKenzie continuing to fight, it now goes off track just a little bit, go for a little detour. That was in a fight with Alexander Abedi for Redfish Blue Fish Sport, if we can call it that. I'm gonna get confused with that 1,000 times over. But also Cosmin Yonishu has just gone off track and given Redfish Sport Blue Fish Sport with Abedi 4th place in the standings overall for their unlimited car class. So this battle has been amazing, Ian, so far, to watch all these guys go toe-to-toe. Somebody make a mistake, somebody go by. It's been great to watch 4th, 5th, and 6th go at it with each other.
Yeah, and that was quite a battle there. The two Fishport cars and then the Lunatic cars battling with each other. As you look at Cosmin Onisu here, looks like he's in that Traction GG car, doing some media work with Justin Below for iRacing. Really appreciate what those guys do, reporting on our various series that we have here on the iRacing service. I think we'll be able to get a chat with Justin later in the race if he's not racing, Kenneth, just really get his opinion on what's going on in the race so far. But yeah, really good drive from them so far. Kind of a quiet drive, but doing a great job.
And Justin Malillo, he will join rather soon. Not sure how soon it will be, but obviously Malillo with Slow Inc. and Cosmin Yunishu behind the wheel of that Subaru WRX. He will step in behind the wheel at some point, but just finished up a Monday Night Racing preseason race that just finished over on eracer.gg as one truck goes for a huge tumble. I'm gonna try to figure out exactly who that might have been. That's in the Pro 2 truck class. And there you see Cross Kirkmeyer up and over in his 75 truck. Actually, that is in the unlimited truck class, so that's going to be a change in position. He's going to fall to 6th, and as he's trying to get some help from some of the fellow drivers around, it's only making things worse. And the 75 is stuck on its roof with no solution, at least for now. He's going to tow.
Yeah, he was in the racing groove there, so that is a little bit of a hallmark of Yes 2 Motorsport as well. Is if you're flipped, you sometimes hope on the goodwill and help of your other drivers to get you back on your roof. Unfortunately, not going to work for him this time. They did have to reset, go back to pit road.
So unfortunate there for the 75. Will join the 66 Gene Beaver Esports Next Level Racing truck as ones that have taken the tow. And by the way, behind the wheel, the 66 is now Josh Edmondson. So Blake Reynolds has given way for Edmondson to take control of that Pro 4 truck. So there's a look at the 66, currently riding in P6 and not too far away. Well, 49 seconds, but there's still time that can be made up between himself and 5th place. Miles Morse, who's behind the wheel of the Team Watson Racing Pro for the win, who is also trying to chase 4th place Fiercely Forward Off-Road Division, and Luke Kraus in the 13. So maybe, frankly, soon enough, Ian, we're going to see these three go toe-to-toe to toe, much like we saw the Subaru WRXs do a little bit earlier on in this race. So maybe we get to see that happen.
Yes, the ebbs and flows of the battles all night long. One of the fun parts once you get into these endurance races is, yeah, you get out a little bit to a lead, then something happens, you catch some lap traffic, it bunches everything back up. I think it's, even though we're on one of the longer short courses on the iRacing service, it's really a small track. I believe we have 36 entries on the track right now. I think one of them's out, but that would leave us with 35 entries still, and that's a lot of cars for this track. You usually don't see that many cars on this track. Usually the max trucks you see is about 20. So yeah, really full track right now. Really makes traffic a factor for these guys, especially if they're in the lead trying to get that gap bigger and bigger.
Yeah, traffic has been a big part of this race, and it's allowed many to take positions away and has allowed some to fall into the grasp of the mistakes and give up spots as the 75 Cross Kirkmeyer gets back on track. He's going to be 7th in that unlimited truck class. He's ahead of Connor Berry, who right now in the 41 for Jim Beaver Dirtford CBR is the last one in that top overall class. He mentioned one driver that has DNF'd and one team that is officially out of this race. Unfortunately, it is the team struggle bus. Brian Sawyer was behind the wheel of the 535, but it looks like for them, their Volkswagen Beetle Light has approached its final stop, and so struggle bus is going to be out here of this Great Lakes 100, unfortunately. Maybe we could see them join in a little bit later, but they are 14 laps down to your main leader. So speaking of leaders, you watch the 75 in the unlimited class. A couple of trucks behind is the leader in the main class. That is the 21, or rather not the 21, that is the 5. That's 2nd place in the unlimited class. There's the 21 Factory Sim Sport Keaton Swain. Ian talked about it at the top of the show. The favorites to go ahead and win this Great Lakes 100 after the Group Therapy 100 at Crandon. It's looking no different. Swain took the lead to start on the starting grid, lost the lead a couple of positions back, but then rallied all the way back to P1, and he has yet to give up the lead once again.
Yeah, really just putting some space here on Luke Knupp and P2 in that unlimited truck class. And Luke Knupp's no slouch, too. I mean, very talented driver. You alluded to it, raced in the Monday Night Racing League. And he is not at all unfamiliar with dirt racing, Kenneth. He came in the other day in our Racecraft TV Rallycraft broadcast just as an open entry for our last race of the season. Came in, won the RX2 race, and actually had a chance to win the RX1 race as well. Almost swept the whole weekend in our Rallycross competition. So really impressive to see the 21 team of Keaton Swain, Crystal King still out to this big lead. Two very talented drivers as well. I don't want to, say that they're not as good as Luke, but Luke, very talented as well. So really impressive to see them putting this gap on him and then making it even larger, actually.
You know what? Watching him perform here in this Great Lakes 100, it kind of makes me wonder how my reaction is going to be when Monday Night Racing goes to dirt. And if Luke Knupp is in there, he's going to be smiling ear to ear and kind of having something up his sleeve on the rest of the field as a really good dirt racer. So, I mean, these skills can translate to MNR later on when Season 5 begins in just a couple of days. So we'll see about that. There's the 39 there. Miles Morse just got down pit road. So Team Watson Racing Pro for the win has gone in for a stop. And actually, you can say the same for the unlimited truck leader, the overall leader, the 21. Keaton Swain has just gone in the stop. We'll see if there's a driver change there on the Pro 4 truck. But for the moment, Ian, just looks like a quick service stop. And the 21 is out and away, going to try to catch Luke Knupp. It's 18 and growing seconds between the two.
Yeah, 18 and growing. And also, we touched earlier how our viewers, Kenneth, can look at the numbers and differentiate our different classes that way. Another thing that our viewers could do if they're having trouble picking out the classes, if you look at the top of the windshield, each of the cars, each of the trucks has a banner that states what division they're in if they put them on their cars for this race. So another way you can tell what class your favorite car or truck is racing in, check out those windshield banners, Kenneth.
Yep, it's kind of similar to NASCAR playoff banners where you can differentiate the non-playoff ones from the ones running for the championship. And so similar here, except this is all different classes here. And obviously many of the classes with very different looking cars and trucks, but with the colors to show for it. As there's a nice little trio there. Here's a truck coming on to pit road. That is leader Luke Knupp in the unlimited truck class for the overall. So that most likely will hand Keaton Swain and Factory Sim Sport the lead back, as we'll take an eye if Knupp is going to allow another driver into the truck or whether he's just going to stay behind the wheel and handle another stint. And that's the thing here, Ian, with this format, as we have 45 minutes left in this Great Lakes 100 presented by Shenandoah Shine. You have the option of having 2 drivers, and you have the option of doing 3. And that changes the dynamic by a lot, because when you have 2, obviously you're going to have to split the difference into the entire race between only 2 guys really in that group. But then you put in a third, and that changes the length of time the drivers have to be on, the stints that they have to perform, and overall the entire responsibility they have to carry for the team. So with guys like Luke Knupp, Keaton Swain, among the drivers in those groups of 2 to 3 cars, you know, they have the opportunity, depending on how many they have on the team, to go on pit road and not go for a driver swap, just go for a stint and then go back all again and do it all once more.
Yeah, and these drivers are going to have to make 3 stops regardless. So it's not like if you have 3 drivers, you have to make an extra stop than everybody else. But that driver swap does take a little bit more time, Kenneth, than just say, just fuel and tires. So a slight advantage to our drivers that only have, or to our competitors that only have 2 drivers in their car. They actually have a little bit less time on pit road, but I think if you're a talented enough driver, it's something that you can make back on the track very easily, as we see here. It's really kind of interesting to see that these Pro 4 trucks and these Pro 2 trucks do not give the cars any break. It's just, excuse me, sir, move out of the way. I'm going to take my spot. Thanks. Have a nice day. Oh no, one of the Fishport cars getting caught up in that pole there. Looks like that's Marcos Palacio in the 183. It's it's easy to get caught up on those posts there. If you get a little bit too wide into one of those turns, you'll get caught on those posts. And those posts actually, kind of, believe it or not, are made of the strongest magnets known to man. So it's actually impossible to get off of those in iRacing.
That's insane. I didn't even know that. It's kind of like the fact that there's boiler plates on the walls at Pocono, or at least there used to be before they switched them out. It's a nice little tidbit here. Bark River International Raceway. That's the same place that one of the Fishport cars got off. It's the same place where Blake Reynolds had that oopsie and got into the fence and then ended up taking the tow in that unlimited truck class. So I guess the same mistake has just happened. This time with a different class car, the 183 of Marcos Palacio, as he's now on pit road, just trying to make sure that they can get the damage fixed, or at least do whatever they can to get the car back out on circuit. So yeah, but a good point you mentioned there, Ian, the fact that when you have the discrepancy in speed between a lot of the trucks, especially the unlimited ones that are a lot faster horsepower wise and just have a better handle of this track, apart from the others, the smaller cars just can't really do anything because the trucks just barrel their way through. And especially on dirt, I think you know this more than anyone else, when you try to apply the brakes, they're kind of non-existent. Your car's just going to slide all over the place, and it's going to try to stop, but it's not really going to do the most effective job as, let's say, if you were on concrete. So it's just a lot harder for the trucks and the faster ones to get by the slower, smaller cars, and that's when you see the contact, when you see the big crashes happen.
Yeah, and especially in our limited cars, the trucks, you can get the back end out a little bit, but the cars are essentially permanently tight. You have the all-wheel drive drivetrain and everything like that, so it's not easy to flick the back end out on these cars. It's really, they're just pushing the entire time. So throttle control is just so important, especially as the track starts to wear in, to not slip the tires like you were alluding to, and to not lock up the brakes and everything like that. It's just a challenge for these drivers, and sometimes even for our best drivers, it's a challenge that they can't handle, Kenneth.
So that's a look at the 116. Chris Leone, we talked to him a little bit before in the broadcast booth, and had Matt Kalish behind the wheel of that. So Leone's back in, had a couple of spins, went off course, and there is the class leader, Daniel H. Just behind in the 133, the Motorless Motorsport Subaru WRX STI. So Leone is still second, but this is going to be a lapping effort out of the class leader here in the unlimited car structure, as it looks like the 116 is going to maintain pace, and the 133 will just have to spend a couple of more corners trying to get around. This is just a bizarre sight where you have first in class and second in class fighting for an area on the track, but not really for position. This is just for keeping yourself lapped or not.
Yeah, and it's not like oval racing, Kenneth. Of course, no cautions here in our race, so it's not like he's racing for a lucky dog position or anything like that as well. So yeah, it's kind of strange how this works. You kind of want to stay on that leader as much as you can, let him pit. That's the way you're going to get your lap back, and then maybe pit after him. But some interesting strategy here, especially with no cautions, to bunch the field back up.
Yeah, that's a big difference between, like you said, the oval racing side and then this type of racing. Even with the road courses, when you don't have the yellows to really help you out, you've got cornered yellows, you have local yellows to let you know, hey, there's an accident here, beware of what's to come in front of you, but there isn't full course yellows to slow the field down, bring it behind a pace car or pace truck given the circumstance, and then have the field reset and maybe change strategy for everybody else. So that was a slight little look at the unlimited car class. We've got a nice fight for P7 in the unlimited truck class, the overall, and you're watching it on screen right now on the feed. That's the 41 Jim Beaver Dirtfish CBR truck of Connor Berry behind the wheel, and Josh Edmondson in the 66. Of course, mentioned that Blake Reynolds had that little oopsie there, went further down the order in the unlimited truck class, worked his way back up. And it looks like the JBE trucks are going at it. They doored each other a couple laps ago, but now it's up to Edmondson to put the fight back up to Berry once again.
Yeah, oopsies and scoopsies. That seems to be the story of the night so far. We have an oopsie by one truck, and then another truck will scoopsie up the position here. So we see Connor Berry, Josh Edmondson battling each other for position here. Not a strange battle to either of these drivers. Both of them are in the running for that Pro 4 championship that's coming up here later in the year, Kenneth. So these guys used to racing each other hard. Really fun to see them racing each other here at our Great Lakes 100 event.
And that's a really good point too, because I almost forgot that there was going to be a Pro Truck Championship for off-road dirt in iRacing later on this year, kind of similar to the announcement of the IR1 Championship when it happened in 2021. But with this Pro 4 Championship, I mean, for these guys who may be qualifying for it and maybe having their eye on that championship and the prize money that goes with it, is this sort of extra practice?
I would think so, yeah, and it's a little bit of practice that you don't normally get. Usually you don't race on a truck that is, or I'm sorry, a track that is this worn in, and you don't obviously race with other cars in your world championship. But I will say, I think this gives these guys a lot of practice at learning situations that they're not used to. You touched on it a little bit earlier that a lot of dirt racing is frankly exploiting those track limits as much as you can. Maybe not necessarily figuring out your line and figuring out where the fastest part of the track is, but maybe finding that little spot on a worn-in track that you didn't know actually gives you a little bit more speed. So I think there are some parallels that you could take from this endurance racing, transfer over to the World Championship, even though they're two vastly different formats.
And of course, I figure that in that Pro 4 Championship, these tracks are going to be in it. Crandon is going to be in it. Wild West is going to be in it. Bark River that you're seeing tonight is probably going to be in the schedule as well. So that could also go in to helping it. You saw a little bit earlier a change in Team Rick, the 288 that is in the limited truck class for the Pro 2. They're third in class right now, and it's Keenan Kusin behind the wheel at this point. So Scaramuza has given up the rights to Keenan. So the K in Team Rick, with the C and the K capitalized, is now behind the helm, and the 288 will try to pick up on what is the gap between himself and Austin Janes for AMX iRacing Red, who is also taken behind Taylor Vandenbush in the 26 for AMX iRacing White. And AMX have been pretty much on it. They're a winner from the Group Therapy 100 in the limited truck class. So again, much like Kane Swain and company, no surprise you're seeing the dominant drivers here in class that won the Group Therapy 100 remaining as strong as ever here in the Great Lakes 100 to follow as well as you continue to watch the battle between the 41 and the 66. I don't know when this is going to end, Ian.
Yeah, and that's the fun thing about these endurance races, is that these battles go on really for hours, and we get to watch him here and break him down. This 75 truck is becoming a factor here for the 41, so we'll see if Edmonton's able to close the gap with that other truck being a factor. And then he touched on Keenan Kuz a little bit here. Funny story with him, I know for a fact, Kenneth, he actually bought the track today, so this is his first run on Bark River, doing a really good job at it. If you want to check out his in-car camera, I think he's streaming over on Twitch. I think his handle is Mr. Arrow HD. So I know all of our viewers out there are watching. Don't log off of Racecraft TV. Keep stick to us here. But if you want to open up another tab, check out a full-time onboard camera. You can check out Keenan Kuzin's camera, Mr. Arrow HD on Twitch. It's really a lot of fun. Really great community over there, Kenneth.
Yeah, and as they call him, Arrow, very entertaining on Twitch. I've watched a couple of his Twitch streams, obviously, when he not only plays iRacing, but plays a lot of Gran Turismo games, and he does a lot of variety streaming, and definitely a good watch if you want to go on Twitch and take a look at Mr. Arrow HD. It is worth it as you continue to watch the fight here. It's now for 6th. It was for 7th here, the last 2 positions in the Unlimited truck class. But they added another truck because the 75 crossed Kirkmeyer. Remember, we saw him go for a flip and had to take the tow in that number 75. Now they're kind of fighting for their lives in the tail end of this Unlimited truck section. It was the 66 of Josh Edmondson that just got around. There's a little bump there to one of the Subaru WRXs, but I guess now just bring it back to 2 trucks because Jim Bieber, Dirtford CBR, Connor Berry has moved on to the pit lane. We'll get a stop for strategy here, and we'll fall back to 8th and maybe pick up the pieces here later on. But I mean, this tail end of the Unlimited truck field is amazing watching. They've yet to give up, and even some of the guys who have had trouble, they're still keeping their foot in it, which is great to see with 35 minutes left.
Yeah, and that's all you really can do. And I think we're going to be lucky enough here in a little bit, Kenneth. I think we're going to bring Cisco Scaramuzza into the booth and get his thoughts on some things here in a second. But wanted to touch on something really quick here. We look at that number 1 position in the limited car class, the 599 with Trevor Teal driving right now. They're still in the lead, Kenneth. They took the lead back on that incident that Connor Parise have, and they still have the lead. Really good run here in their Beetle Light, as we see here right now, fighting off Tom Grady behind him, and really just putting more and more positions between them and the drivers behind them.
You know what? They're called the team, but I don't think their performance is at all. I think it's better than It's great. It's great right now as they continue to hold control in P8 overall. It's been a great day and night so far for the Volkswagen Beetle Lights, who are the slowest in horsepower factor compared to every other car or truck you see in this Great Lakes 100 presented by Shenandoah Shine. How about we take another guest up in the broadcast booth? This time, it's Cisco Scaramuzza for Team Rick, or as I should say, Team RI, capital CK. You and Keenan on this group together.
Yeah, thank you. That is very specific. Thank you.
Yeah, I had to identify it correctly because I know the rest of Team Rick fortunately aren't here in this Great Lakes 100, but you ran your first stint. How did it feel from behind the wheel?
Oh, I'm done. I ran my first and only stint. We're basically just splitting it 50-50 here. Keenan, don't bid it. Okay, we're good. Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. I have to say, I don't know what I've had more fun doing. Driving it was a lot of fun, as Christopher Leone is once again trying to pass us. He might be able to do it this time. I'm not really sure. Oh, hello. But yeah, I don't know what was more fun, in driving the truck or just sitting in the spotter stand, because I don't know if you guys saw that traffic jam of us, Justin Malillo in the other traction vehicle, and then Leone in the middle of all of it as Keenan bowls over the cone there. But oh my gosh, this is so much fun. Keenan's having a ball. For him, this is basically like drifting physics all over again. So something he's very much used to, and we've been driving this thing in the off season with the S2 Motorsports guys this whole time. So definitely come hang out with us. Driving this thing is so much fun. I cannot overstate that.
You know, I'm surprised myself that I didn't even bring up Keenan's drifting abilities, because that helps in a place where you don't really have a lot of grip. But nonetheless, I mean, we talked with Chris Leone, and he really wasn't as emotional about the team status as Kalis was driving the car and kind of bumping with some other drivers. Obviously, you're being more the cheerleader here to Keenan out on track, running third in class. But how is it, the dynamic between lap cars? It feels like, especially with the trucks, it's like you can't really do much because the speed differential is so big, where a lot of guys are just playing kind of ping pong ball or dodgeball out there. How hard is it to play that dynamic with everybody around you?
Oh, it's extremely. I mean, I shouldn't be out there destroying cars, but I can admit some guilt to that. A couple Beetles early on. you know, especially once you get into the rubbered in area, if you get on that, it's literally like driving on black ice, as there goes Dan Ice. But yeah, it's literally like driving on black ice. Once you get into this area, the truck is going to continue to move to where it is, and it's not really going to want to change direction. You're seeing that a lot in that first of those 2 hair shoes once we come out of this complex. So it's really hard, especially if you get stuck down there going side by side. There's not really a whole lot you can do apart from pull the handbrake and then just pray the truck actually grips up. So you can see Keenan kind of using the outside there, because especially for us in the Pro 2 lights, you know, that's where we have to go. Some of the Beetles and the Subarus, they can go into this kind of black ice area, this rubbered in area, and you're fine. But for us, we just have absolutely nothing here. Ian Fisher's car is currently crashed into the barrier. That's not fun as we go over the jump here. And then, yeah, this section, best section of the racetrack right here, because if you nail that jump, you can. It's almost like Minami in Japan, where you come over the jump and go right up against the wall. It's so much fun.
You know, and I wish I had the talent to be out there on track, because it would be a lot of fun. But I know that I would keep at least 2 seconds on the track before slamming into a big.
Come on.
Or one of the cars. But nonetheless, Ian, I know you've been watching Cisco as much as I have. It's been a lot of fun to watch him and this team and everybody go on track. You got any questions for Cisco up here?
Yeah, Cisco, actually, you sort of touched on it earlier, but you said that some of the cars, some of the trucks were able to get out to the cushion of the dirt there, maybe some, like, kind of take away some of that dirt on the outside of the turns. But what you're saying is the trucks can't get there, really get to the outside. It's more the cars that are able to do that?
Well, so the cars are a little bit more gripped up on that rubbered in section. They can figure it out a little bit better. It's just down to the way the tires are on those BF Goodrich's, now Yokohamas. For us in the trucks, there's absolutely nothing. Oh, that was some fun on the other side of the race course there. There's absolutely nothing for us in the Pro 2 light on there. I mean, you could see, I don't know if we're back on Keno, you see a car rejoin there, but yeah, if you look at that Subaru, for example, he'll go to the outside, whereas you can see Keenan, he's going to come through here, nothing, and then once we get to the outside, it grips up, and you can see right there, Keenan just gets put into the wall. So for us, it's so crucial to stay out of that, but some of the other cars, whether it's the four-wheel drive systems that's helping them or what it is, or they're just lighter, they don't have the same sort of struggles that we are just digging into that rubbered section.
Gotcha. So actually the rubbered section, if I understand correctly, is actually hurting you guys a little bit more than trying to get into that clean dirt. Gotcha. That's interesting. And that's something to touch on as well, Kenneth, as we go deeper and deeper into this race, is that with that happening, you can see, as we see Parise make the pass here right now on Keenan, is that those cars are able to get to the inside, make up some of those positions, maybe even make a push for this overall win.
You know, so far, I think that's why there was the conversation that the Subarus would be faster later on in the race. Because, and now with what Cisco is saying about how slick it is down there on the darker part of this track, that the Subarus are just better overall at handling that part, while the trucks kind of struggle just a little bit. But, I mean, for right now, I mean, you got your first stint in, which is your last. You spread half of the race.
Oh, no!
Oh, was one of the 160. That is Matt Kalish who just went up in front of you, flipping over and over. I mean, how is it to be sort of the moral support for Keenan here as he tries to finish off the race?
Oh, it's just fun for us. I mean, we've, you know, Keenan, myself, Ian, and Ryan are here tonight, but we've been doing this together here for a while now, and so much of this is just cheerleading between ourselves, between the races we've done with Jimmy Broadbent and doing some of the iRacing official events, the endurance races. Just going out there and just having a time with your friends. It's so much fun, and especially in a situation like this, you know, Keenan came into this absolutely no practice. He was doing officials before this. I actually had to spend a little bit of time. I'm the slower driver pretty much out of all of Team Rick, so I'll usually put in a little bit more practice these days just to kind of get myself to the level that's acceptable and I'm not just out there destroying cars. But for Keenan and everybody else, you know, Keenan came in, oh, he almost landed on top of him. Hold on to it. But yeah, it's just, once my stint's done, he's got Chad, and walking him through, and TJ and Steve walking him through what's going on track. So at this point, I'm just the cheerleader. This is going to get interesting because second place just pitted. So we've been off sequence a little bit with P2. The AMX trucks, we knew coming into this. Oh, Kalish, please stay away from us. Ooh, that was a tap. Oh, hold on to it. Yep, and Keaton's going to go way wide here. And there, just as I talked about, look at the Subaru going right through the Rubberden section. That's four-wheel drive, man. As someone who drives the Subaru in real life, it makes a difference.
It definitely does, and as Keenan goes to the outside here, they're gonna be second here, so no X on pit road for AMX iRacing Red. I was just about to turn to that because at the drop of the green, it looks like AMX had the trucks, they have two of them now, to beat on the racetrack, and you guys have been following suit in third. Is there something you guys are going to try here near the end of this race? Maybe some strategy or maybe some wackiness to put yourself in the lead of your class?
We're just kind of seeing where the cards fall at this point. We kind of knew coming into this, AMX, they're good at this. I mean, their drivers speak for themselves in terms of talent and iRating. So we kind of knew coming into this, okay, it's going to be a battle for third. So if we can pull anything else out, that would be fantastic. We're not going to try too many crazy things here. I know there's probably a splash and dash coming. So we'll just see what happens. But yeah, we're just along for the ride at this point, just trying to keep the truck in one piece.
You know what? I'm going to join you on that. I think all of us are here on the ride for it, but it's been so much fun. I know we've cut in a lot of this now, 25 minutes left in this Great Lakes 100. So we're going to continue the fun for just a little bit before we continue the win.
Oh, no! Oh!
Oh, that was close.
Zach, go get a replay of that. I'll see you guys later. Zach, go find a replay of that. Good Lord.
Well, no, but nonetheless, Cisco, of course, appreciate the time. It's been a lot of fun talking to you, and of course, much like you with Team Rick, we wish the best of luck for Team Rick CK on their adventure in the final laps of the race.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
It's Cisco Scaramouche, and now we're gonna find Ian what happened there with one of the rallycross cars. It was, I believe, the limited. We'll see. It was one of them that went over. There's the Team Rick Pro 2. There's one of the Volkswagen cars here. The Beetle Lights in the limited car class. I think that's the one that went around. Oh my goodness!
My goodness!
Hit there. That's more like a spaceship than a race car. I'm not sure what happened there.
Yeah, I think that was Kalish again doing his best breakdancing impression there, coming over the jump. That was something else. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but like I said earlier, you get wide on that huge jump, and it's so easy. Like you can't get to the ground fast enough to be able to get out of that berm, and once you hit it, you just start spinning like we saw.
They'll try to identify who it was, and I think I do have an idea. It's the 177 of Paul Mikolajczyk in the Pushin' Pierogies in 8th in class right now, 29th on the grid. They're running a Subaru WRX STI in the unlimited car class, so they went for a huge tumble around the Team Rick Pro 2 light, and that got really close there. But fortunately, Pushin' Pierogies is back on track, and Mikolajczyk is going to be there, hopefully, I think, at least in their stint to finish off the race, much like Team Rick did there with Cisco and Keenan spreading it half and half between each part of this race. As things got really close around the 41, Jim Beaver, Dirtfish CBR, Connor Berry had one of the Fish Sport cars go sideways. That's Tyler Milligan, and I know, Ian, you're a little bit more biased. You're part of the Fish Sport group, the one who painted all of these Subarus, but how's it been from the broadcast booth watching these guys go out on track?
Oh, it's been awesome, and really, I mean, if you don't mind me taking a second here and talking about it, at Fish Sport, where we know we're not one of those Jim Beaver esports teams. We're not one of those like high-end teams, but what we try to do is we try to get guys that want to get to that next level and just give them a spot where they can showcase themselves and learn from some different drivers as well. I do think we need to get some clarification on some rules though, Kenneth, and for that we're going to bring Chris Leone actually back in the booth. I think, Chris, you got an update on the rules for us. Is that correct, sir?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to apologize to everybody here. As we talked about, doing events of this nature, of this very bizarre nature, is about breaking a lot of eggs to make an omelet. We're not sure what happened, but somehow the session got changed to max out to 2 drivers. So about half of our teams, which had 3 drivers, are only going to end up having 2 in the vehicle. So the quick decision on what we're going to do, you guys asked for more of this racing, so you're going to get it, we're going to do a make good event at some point soon here to make sure that all the drivers who didn't get to race get to race. In the meantime, what we're going to do as far as points goes is if you were on the entry list, whether you got to drive or not, you're going to get the points, and we'll figure out what to do beyond that after we get the make good scheduled. But yeah, sorry everybody. Just one of those bizarre things that happens. I have certainly, I think, made bigger screw-ups on events. I've made smaller screw-ups. They all suck. But yeah, it's bizarre though, because we had Dave Bodio, our third driver, actually qualified the car. And then I got in it in the race, and then Matt got in it in the race, and nothing flagged about this. Nothing was weird, nothing was off. So yeah, we're actually, we discovered this while I was in the booth with you guys, and that one question where I had no idea how to answer, that's what I was figuring out at the time. And I was just having my oh crap moment and trying not to make it obvious on the air until we had, because you know how it goes. You've got to be clear about what you're actually doing about it, not just discovering it. So again, apologies everybody. We'll get it figured out, but that's what happens when you decide to play God, I guess. Wouldn't be a season opener with rallycross cars anywhere in the world, though, if something didn't go horrifically wrong. Speaking from experience.
Well, the story of Icarus comes to mind, Chris. Maybe we flew close to the iRacing sun and melted our wings here for a night. But as you said, we'll get it figured out as we see an interesting rejoin there by one of my cars, to say the least there. Tyler Milligan there. Yeah, Milligan, you know, a great guy, and I don't want to dog on him or anything like that, but Tyler Milligan, actually, very impressive. A legally blind driver. That's not even a joke that I'm making. Legally blind, has to sit about a foot away from his computer screen to be able to race. So, you know, really just fun to see everybody out here. Even people that, you know, maybe aren't as able as everybody else, able to get out here, race on the same track, and just really enjoy things with everybody else as well.
That's also very, very cool. You know, we've certainly had drivers racing with adaptive hand controls. We've had drivers of all sorts of different abilities, as we see Ryan Steinhoff go off there. And looks like another one in front of him, too, that just had to rejoin. This track is difficult this worn in, I'll tell you that much.
Well, but, especially this part we're looking at right here, Chris. This turn, that K-rail is a killer, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah, I think I've bended on that a couple of times. Did you guys see me screw up coming off of one of those big jumps and get stuck on the wrong part of the track twice? Because I made the same mistake twice, which bothers me to no end.
Well, I was about to say, which time? Like, you got to be a little more specific than that. So, as we see...
All yes of them.
Yeah, everybody just having, you know, trouble with this track as it gets worn in. And I think, Chris, Kenneth, that goes back to a lot of our drivers that even if they're very, very experienced sim racers on the dirt road track, you usually don't get a track this worn out. So really interesting to see what these guys are doing to handle this advanced track state that we're in.
Yeah, you don't. And when you run an endurance style race like you are here at this track, obviously the dirt road community and the races that they hold are not used to going this long. They usually are more sprints than full endurance races. So seeing it this one out has posed a brand new obstacle for everybody to overcome, apart from the lap traffic and apart from obviously the race that everybody wants to win, whether they're in the class and they want to win in their class or whether they want to win overall in the unlimited truck section. But I mean, I'll tell you, Chris, I mean, your team 116, especially now with Matt Kalish behind the wheel of the Subaru WRX STI, they've got through some things again. It's actually the 116.
Commentators curse. Oh, he landed it. He landed it. What's the Tony Hawk score? What's the Tony Hawk score on that?
I don't think his special bar was all the way up yet, Chris, so I don't know if he got a special trick out of that. But I was going to touch on that commentator's curse earlier. You were talking about Blake Reynolds, and he immediately went into those polls. So we might have to take a look at this. You might have the stewards take a look at your unfair commentary curse advantage.
I think it's something in my nature. I've had it happen before so many times, and I've had jokes as there's another look at the flip there for the 116, and there's the landing right there, all on four wheels with the Volkswagen Beetle light just behind it. But yeah, I've had it on the networks that I've covered it with, and every time, you know, when I cover the oval races, they're like, oh, we've got a long run, and I say something about, oh, there's been no caution, we've gone through a long run, maybe we get to a strategy, and then the caution comes out like 0.5 seconds later. So I mean, yeah.
And now we see
exactly.
Gary the Snail, unfortunately, on his roof there.
That's what happens in this race. We've got some pretty interesting battles, though. Certainly the battle for the lead, but you've also got that face-off between Cam Peterson and Connor Parise, and then the Trevor Teal, Scott Kerr, Zach Knowles team. Not sure which of the two drivers ended up taking the wheel for. It looks like may have been Zach and Trevor. I think
Knowles. Yeah, I think Knowles is in the car again right now.
Yeah, it's. I don't know. And again, I can't apologize enough to everybody for whatever happened with the session. I'm not sure. We're gonna have to give that a look and try to figure out. Because that's a bummer. That's not what we want. I certainly apologized to Dave Bodio about 1 million times before I got back in the booth with you guys. Because there was absolutely no plan for me to take stint number 2. But Matt had gotten bowling balled a few too many times, and I'm like, let's take you out and calm you down, and I will try to maintain P2 for you for a little bit. And then it's... I don't know. These are tough races, but they're kind of tough like that by design. This isn't a desert race where you've got anywhere from 20 to 100 miles of a loop course to deal with, or a big point-to-point deal. It's Bark River. It's a mile and a half. Like it's gonna happen, and it's gonna happen a lot.
And I kind of want to ask about that, Chris, is, with you were touching on, like the desert races, point to point, a big loop and stuff like that. Obviously, you're going over some big jumps, but you mentioned here just the micro scale that we're kind of on here on this short course, and how much bumps and jumps these drivers are going over. What's the physical workload like inside the sim cockpit?
It hasn't been too bad, I guess. I mean, I don't know. It's... Again, as you guys know, I drive very timidly. I think my stints have been longer because I use so little throttle when I'm doing it. And it's not because I'm trying to save fuel or anything. It's just that I don't have the throttle control to really be fast in this. I'm here, again, as the anchor guy. But... what I've noticed is that just by kind of driving gently and saving that, I felt perfectly on pace, throughout this entire time. You just, at some point when you sign up for the Subarus, there's just a little bit of you're the bowling ball sometimes. It's just a difficult class to be in, and that's no different from any other form of multi-class racing. You get that sometimes.
It seems like you're alluding to a little inadvertent throttle control, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, especially with this four-wheel drive on this dirt track. And I will say, Chris, if it makes you feel any better, I've been watching the chat here as the broadcast has gone on, and you're getting some love in chat right now. It looks like our friend Mr. Gecko says that Chris is doing Chris things, but we still appreciate you. So.
Yes, like driving with no throttle and not quadruple checking the session before it goes live.
Yeah, and Kenneth, this is a little bit of a, I kind of want to make it a Vortex tradition. We have all these great names and all these team names out here, all these guys coming together, racing together. But we've got some really excellent team names out here. I want to give a shout out. You mentioned multiple times, 21 Salvage, that's up there. That's a pretty solid one. I also... Based on my Eastern European heritage, I got to give a shout out to Pushin' Pierogies. That's a great team as well. And if you're in the chat right now watching us live, feel free to chime in with your favorite team names. There's some great ones out there. But Chris, what are some names that stood out to you in this entry list?
Yeah, it's always funny. It's which guys are willing to do the goofy ones. I certainly have a bias, and it's not because it's your team, but it's because I named your team. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, I was not smart enough to come up with those names. I'll admit that.
1 fish sport, 2 fish sport, red fish sport, blue fish sport. I'm proud of that. That was a throwaway joke in the chat and everything, and you just ran with it.
Home run. Seriously. Kind of like you were saying earlier, you're inadvertent throttle control, you're an inadvertent genius with naming things. So
yes, cunning linguist, as it were. It's always funny. You get different ones. Again, the struggle bus guys were also caught out by the 3-driver rule, and they're another group who I apologize to. They got kind of screwed on that, but they had one of the best paint schemes tonight and one of the best themes to actually paint it up like a school bus. Thought that was really cool. You've got the Bing Bong, which I didn't realize people were still saying on the Shenandoah Shine team. Admin's worst nightmare had me worried when they signed up for the event, and then I figured out who they actually were, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, they're fine, it's fine.
Oh my, look at this.
Oh, that's a big crash.
Yeah, it looks like one of the fish sport cars looks like Kenneth there got into Parise, and that is not the place where you want to get together there, because those railings over the track, they don't move.
That is quite possibly the worst place to get into a crash, and you're right. It is one of the fish sport cars, red fish sport, blue fish sport, with Marcos Palacio behind the wheel. Got into Cameron Peterson, who, by the way, is leading the class in the Volkswagen Beetle Light, the limited cars class. So that's a big incident there on one of the jumps. They got together, they went flying, and then had a couple of more cars and trucks get into it. One of them going end over end. I think on par, Ian, for our biggest crash of this race. I think so far at 4.
Yeah, that took out quite a few cars, and that actually had some significant place implications to it there. Obviously, you know, nobody's out there trying to make contact with anybody else, but it's hard. It's all these cars on this pretty tiny track. I know it seems really big when you're watching it at home, but there's not a lot of room out there when you're out there driving, Chris. I'm sure you can attest to that. It's not easy to stay away from other cars.
You know, it really depends. You have to be very focused. You have to be very deliberate with your inputs. And I mean, even doing that, and even definitely running off pace compared to a lot of the different vehicles, you know, I was still having issues there. I was still definitely having issues with, you know, I had 3 or 4 unforced errors that I can think of in the second stint. I think there was only 1 on my end in the first, but yeah, it is a very difficult, unforgiving form of racing. 100%, and it's a lot of fun, you know, because of that. It's a challenge unlike anything that, you know, you really are going to be doing otherwise, but it can be very unforgiving, and you can get caught up in other people's messes very easily.
Yeah, going back to some of our race action here, Kenneth, we're now looking at the 21 car. Crystal King back in the car. She closed out the Group Therapy 100 when we did that as well. So it looks like she's going to be in here closing out the Great Lakes 100 too, trying to pick up back-to-back wins in the 21 truck.
Yeah, that's going to mean big-time things for them, Crystal and Keaton being the dominant ones and winning the Group Therapy 100 and trying to be back at it again. We're approaching the final 10 laps here, the final 9 minutes here from the virtual Bark River International Raceway. And obviously, Chris, thank you so much. It's been awesome to have you in the broadcast booth. We had Cisco here earlier on. He was very adamant about cheerleading Team Rick and Keenan, who's now going to finish their race. But it's been awesome hearing your perspective from all this, as not only one of the people as organizers of the event, but as a driver in competition. So it's been awesome to have you here in the booth at Racecraft TV.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a lot of fun to join you guys, and apologies to be the bearer of bad news on my second booth stint. Unfortunately, I got to take responsibility for it because in the end I made the session. Like I said, I have no idea how it changed up, but we'll go figure out how that happened, and if worst comes to worst, then I guess I've just got to launch it myself manually at 8:30 the next time we do a race, you know. That's all you can do. All you can do is live and learn, right?
Live and learn, and our leader is pitting, Kenneth. I'm not sure what's happening here.
So King is now coming in. We'll see if Brantley Bryant, who has stepped into the Team Shine Bing Bong number 5 truck, is going to be able to overcome the gap. It's a total of 18 seconds and closing. With Factory Sim Sport on kind of a lempty stop here, Jacks will drop on their truck, and now it's all on the Shenandoah Shine truck to make this happen, to take away the overall lead. This could be a big development here in the final 8 minutes of the Shenandoah Shine Great Lakes 100. It's now 7.1 seconds as finally Crystal King comes out of the stall in the midst of some lap cars, one of the Volkswagens there, but Brantley Bryant now on the chase, and I think this is enough of a gap to close here, Ian, to say, hey, there's still a shot to win this thing.
Absolutely. We got 7 minutes left, only 8 seconds back. Crystal King, very, very, very talented driver, very underrated here on iRacing, but she's going to have her work cut out for her in the final 7 minutes to hold off Bryant, Kenneth.
and it's grown so far 8 seconds flat. So Brian gonna have to do a little more work here to catch up to Crystal King, and we'll keep an eye on that for the rest of the next 7.5 minutes or so here in the final 7 laps of this race. So take an eye on the rest of the field as it stands. Your current leader of the Volkswagen class, which is the limited car class. You look at Cameron Peterson, has had some scuffles here in tonight's Great Lakes 100, but that matte black Volkswagen Beetle Light has been on fire, and no doubt even with some of the incidents they've suffered, that team has been so quick. And as he goes tangled, that's a big hit there to one of the Fish Sport cars. That's Alexander Abedi in the 183 that goes around. They're 5th in their respective class, but they're going to get back onto it. A big hit there, but nonetheless, they're okay. P1 in the next class stands as the 133 Motorless Motorsport. Talked a little bit about Daniel Aish and Attard, Cohen Attard, both of them being very talented racers from Australia. And they're both really putting it on in this Subaru class. They've had some issues keeping pace with the 116, the Jim Beaver Esports car. They got really close, but ever since they kind of tailed away, it's been smooth sailing for them. They're going to try to hold on. Number 1 in the Pro 2 Light division, AMX iRacing White. They've been the dominators here. They really haven't had any troubles, Ian. They've been the overall best here. Taylor Vandenbush behind the wheel of this 26. And then comes P1. I think that's the last car. Yeah, last truck and last one in the class leaders. So Vandenbush just trying to hold on onto the Pro 2 Light lead, and they've got a good gap up to the truck behind him in Team Rick, so they should hold it on for the next 6 minutes or so.
Yeah, and that gap is continuing to grow between our first and second overall places. So looks like Crystal King doing what she can to keep growing that gap. A little bit of an anecdote here, but with Daniel Aish, he actually really enjoys the baseline setup of the Subaru. Kenneth, I've raced with Daniel Aish for a long time. He's actually taught me a thing or two about rally racing here on the service, and really being on this baseline setup, it really kind of plays into his advantage as well, because he's used to this setup. He runs this setup at every single track, and he actually kind of hangs his hat on being one of those guys that is still fast without using a setup that's tailored to him specifically.
You know, I feel guilty that we didn't mention that earlier in the broadcast, because setup is also big here. You touched on it, Ian, at the top of the broadcast, that these guys are stuck with fixed setups. There's no open setup tinkering between what you can do with these respective cars or trucks, depending on your class. And maybe if you're a driver like a Daniel Aish, you're comfortable running with what the baseline setup gives you. But let's say if there's a fixed setup, Bark River or baseline, for many other drivers, maybe it just doesn't suit their driving style, and that could be the reason why some guys are a little slower on their stints than others in their respective teams. So right now the base set line working for Daniel Aish, and it's a good point to touch on throughout this Great Lakes 100 as the track dries off, as everything starts to change traffic wise as well. You're also dealing with a setup and a driving style that is different depending on who's in the car, so that's worth noting as well. Aish continuing to lead, and just once again, Factory Sim Sport gapping in and actually closed in just a tad, but it's back growing to around 10 seconds or so. It looks like the Shenandoah Shine team, Team Shine Bing Bong, are going to have to pull in a last-ditch effort, Ian, because time is running out, and you've still got a lot of traffic between yourself and Crystal Cream, if you're one of them.
Yeah, and we're running on average for all of these cars. You're running around a 1 minute 20-second lap time. So yeah, only a few laps left there for Bryant and the Team Shenandoah Shine truck to make their move. But really, it's still a very solid, respectable run in second place. Did a really good job of keeping their truck clean all day long. Got into a few incidents with other cars, but that's going to happen here on our Vortex series. And really, that's just part of it. You can't get angry. You can't let it get under your skin. You just got to recover the best you can and keep going. And that's why you see our 21 car in the lead right now, and you see our car with Justin Malillo here into the K-rail.
So unfortunate for Malillo. They're stuck on the barriers, and Slow Inc. in the 6th car in their class, 27th overall. They're going to have to take a tow so late in this race, coming into the final 3 minutes and 15 as there's the leader getting almost spun. It's a big crash there. Could that help Brantley Bryant to get back in the game?
Crystal King, very good job of saving it. And I just noticed, Kenneth, when we get another shot at Crystal King's car, her helmet is just a giant smiley face in the truck there, which I just noticed that's pretty funny for our viewers if they want to check that out. But yeah, I mentioned that Crystal King was getting up to some traffic here, was going to navigate it. That almost ended their race. A simple flip over there, and it would have been, race over for them.
And, we talk about no damage and how you can take advantage of the fact that you don't have the whole bad thing about having to repair your truck and all that, as looks like one of the Shenandoah Shine trucks, Brantley Bryant, just slightly went around, and that's going to grow the gap to around 12.5 seconds. When you have no damage, you can take advantage of it and be like, hey, maybe I can get some slaps and bruises here. But again, we've seen it before. You get stuck into a fence, your truck or car gets flipped over, and you can't flip it back, and then all of a sudden you have to tow, and that is a myriad of lost time that could take you out of a race and take you out of a very promising position, and that could have almost hurt Crystal King if it affected the number 21 enough. But at least for the most part, the 21 truck is holding on strong, and there's your Pro 2 truck leader in Taylor Vandenbush, who most likely will give way here, although they're just trying to get out of the slick stuff, make sure their trucks aren't really as sideways as they are. As there's the 75 up and over, and that's Jonathan Sterling on its side.
Trying to finagle it. There he goes. He was trying to finagle it to get back on his wheels there, able to do it. With those pro trucks, you can kind of wiggle the wheel a little bit, get the car to flip over there. So he was able to do that, able to keep going, able to finish off our last minute and 30 seconds here, Kenneth.
Well, if you love what's going on here in the Shenandoah Shine Great Lakes 100, there is more to come on this Vortex series for the rest of the year. August 25th, we'll have the Sierra Nevada 100. We'll take this combo and this format to the Wild West circuit, and we'll go racing for another 100 miles there, and then we'll take our final 100 miles to close off 2022, December 29th, around the same time as the inaugural Group Therapy 100. It'll be the second time that that race gets held at the Crandon International Raceway, so be sure to tune in for that. Chris Leone, all the guys, all the organizing members of this Vortex series, they've had a lot of fun organizing this one, and no doubt they're going to improve it, make it a lot better, and it's going to be even more fun to cover the Sierra Nevada 100 and the Group Therapy 100 to span through the rest of this 2022 year. This should be the final lap for Factory Sim Sport. Keaton Swain, Crystal King, they both have been arguably the most dominant drivers all evening long in this unlimited truck class. Remember, they started this race in the lead and had no issues getting around the other two, the 5, and I believe the 62 or the 41 that were trying to give chase, and there were 3 wide at one point to start this race. And in the final 12 seconds of the Shenandoah Shine Great Lakes 100, it'll all be about this final lap for Factory Sim Sport. And what a job it's been by them, Ian. They have been fantastic as Barney the Flagman gives the white flag.
Yeah, with the exception of pit stops, I believe, Kenneth, I think they've gone wire to wire leading this entire race. And really, it's just a testament of how well Keaton and Crystal are able to stay out of trouble. Really, I mean, that's the biggest thing, is they were able to stay out of trouble. I don't think they had to reset at all in this race, and they're able to get out to a 15-second lead here on the final lap, and I think that's going to be enough, as barring any unforeseen circumstances, I would hate the commentators curse them at this point, to get them to the checkered flag.
You think about the challenges that come in with a race like this, multi-class, many different cars and trucks with different horsepower outputs, different weight outputs, and we've seen the traffic jams and the big crashes that have resulted from drivers having miscommunications out on track, but it hasn't stricken this Factory Sim Sport truck. The 21 Crystal King with Keaton Swain, they will come off for the final corners, and this is just going to be the icing on the cake to what is going to be a second straight win after getting the W in the Group Therapy 100. It's going to be another win here for Factory Sim Sport. Final corners here from the Bark River International Raceway, and it's another win for Factory Sim Sport, Crystal King and Keaton Swain.
What a good run. Just wire to wire, able to keep the truck clean, able to stay out of trouble, as I believe we're going to see Daniel Asher coming across the line, winning our limited car class. A little bit of touch there with a Team Watson racing car, but it looks like they're going to be able to bring it home for their first place in their class as well, Kenneth.
There is Daniel Eisch for Motorless Motorsport. The Australian will come across the final jump. They're going to win the unlimited car class, the Subaru WRX STI. As for the Pro 2s, it's Taylor Vandenbush for AMX iRacing White. No doubt AMX iRacing has been the most dominant in their respective class. They had a bit of a challenge from Team Rick with the C&K capitalized. There's Cameron Peterson for Cam Nor Paris Surson, as Connor Paris was on that one behind the wheel with Peterson there. And they're going to come across the final corners. That Volkswagen Beetle Light for the limited car class is going to head to victory lane. And what a race it's been overall. Still many drivers coming across the start-finish line, but the celebration's already underway in the grass off the racing surface for all of the winners tonight.
Nice, the reverse burnouts. You don't see that very often, Kenneth. That's a good touch right there.
You don't see that on the oval side for sure. So it is awesome to see the reverse burnout there. All of them converging in the middle of the grass. Fantastic sight to see. And no doubt a great event being held from the drop of the green to the drop of the checkered. Everybody put in their best. All the teams came out to show. And it's been amazing to see as the celebrations will continue. And we'll have a look at exactly where every single team and driver finished at the end of the Shenandoah Shine Great Lakes 100. So everybody getting their wraps in, everybody making sure they can let out that last sigh of relief after 100 grueling miles, 79 laps from Bark River International Raceway. But we'll take a short break here on Racecraft TV, but you won't miss a thing. We'll have our post-race show on the other side of the break, and results and interviews to follow, so don't stay anywhere. We've got more coming next.
This is iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in indoor series from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, Aussie Supercars and more. Take on legendary circuits like Daytona, Silverstone and the Nürburgring. Join iRacing's global online racing community and get on track today at iRacing.com. This is iRacing, the world's...
Welcome back to the virtual Bark River International Raceway, where we have just finished off the Shenandoah Shine Great Lakes 100, round number 1 of the hashtag Yes to Motorsport Virtual Off-Road Team Endurocross, otherwise known as Vortex. We just finished up what was a fantastic race in every single class, but we've got to count out the winners, the ones who stayed up front all the way to the checkered flag. It's Crystal King who brings it home for Factory Sim Sport. They had Keaton Swain on the other side of the sin, so the 21 goes to victory lane for the second straight time in this style of racing. They won the Group Therapy 100 in the top overall class as well. Got to give credit to Team Shine Bing Bong, as they had Brantley Bryant conclude. They had Luke Canutt behind the wheel as well, that Pro 4 off-road truck, so they finished second. Nathan Matoxin didn't really talk about his name all night long, but he brings the number 62, the Adamant's Worst Nightmare AMX truck, in P3. Connor Berry for Jim Beaver Dirtfish CBR, he'll arrive in P4. Josh Clogg caps up the top 5 in the 13 for Fiercely Forward Off-Road Division. And then comes the Volkswagen Beetleites. Didn't expect the lowest powered cars to be up here in the mix with the unlimited truck class, but here they are. It's the class winner, Cameron Peterson, on behalf of Camnor Parasurson in the 548. That's definitely a tongue twister there. The Ant team doesn't do an ant job. They do a great job here, P2 in their class. It's Zach Knowles behind the wheel to finalize the race for them. And then here comes the final racers in your unlimited truck class. Team Watson Racing Pro for the win had Anthony Gaudio behind the wheel of the 39 to finish off. Jonathan Sterling was in control of the 75, the CXR Project Black off-road truck. They finished 7th in their class. And Jim Beaver Esports Next Level Racing in the 66 with Coke Series driver Blake Reynolds. They finished the race 3 laps down, capping off the top 10. Ian?
Yeah, and then we take a look here. The first place in our Subaru Car Limited class going to be Daniel Aish and Conatard there in the Motorless Motorsport. Really good job by both of our Australian drivers. Former Supercross competitors. Taylor Vanderbush in the Pro 2 light truck is going to come home, looks like, in first place in their division as well. Don Runkle Jr. in the Beetle Light, 3rd place in their division. Matt Kalish with a good run. He had some trouble getting into some incidents, but really a good run there for the 116. The 574 of Ryan Steenhoff coming in, 4th place in the division. Greg Johnson, 5th in their division. And shout out Greg Johnson for all the practice sessions this weekend. That's really clutch. Keenan Kuzin, 2nd place in the Pro 2 Light division. Nick Nowak in 3rd. Tom Grady in 4th. And then rounding out this page is going to be John Borst in the 569. Nice. In the Volkswagen Beetle Light, rounding out 6th place there in our limited car class.
We'll get to 21st on through 30th, the final stack of drivers in this Great Lakes 100. It's Team Watson Racing Tiny Truck In the 239, they had James Watson behind the wheel of that to finish the race. They close off the top 5 there in their respective class. And then it's third in the blue class there, as you see on screen. Kyle Pellegrini in the 139, the Subaru WRX. They close in third in their class. It's fourth place in class for Alexander Abedi and the red Fishsport, blue Fishsport car. They're Subaru had a lot of issues. They had some good spins here and there, but still great racing, and they get a good finish out of it as well. David Bush III closes off a finish here in the 115 for Lunatic Racing. They end up 24th overall, and then it's 6th place in the 210 truck for Pro 2 light class. Zach Clifton ends up there. Kyle Baldessano closes off the Volkswagen Beetle class in 7th. It's 8th for Brian Sawyer in the 535 in Team Struggle Bus. They were really the only car out of this race, so that closes off the Volkswagen class. But then in between, you have Justin Melillo for Slow Inc. in the 153. They're 27th overall, 6th in class, and then it's pushing Pierogies with Paul Mikolajczyk in the 177, ends up 7th in their class, and Carson McKenna is the last one in the Subaru Unlimited car class, 1 Fishsport, 2 Fishsport. They finished the 181 in 29th overall position. So that's a look at all the teams, all the drivers, but why don't we head up to victory lane, as we'll call it here from Bark River International, and get a word with the race winner, or at least the one that closed off the race with Keaton Swain, Crystal King for Factory Sim Sport in the 21. They win overall here in the Shenandoah Shine Great Lakes 100. Crystal, I mean, it looked like you and Keaton just had so much speed. You started on pole, led the race, had the 3-wide battle for the overall lead to start, but nonetheless, you both were able to work in complete tandem without any issues. How was it to close off the race and get you both a second straight win in this 100-mile format of dirt off-road multi-class racing?
I wouldn't say we got through it without any troubles. We had a couple close calls. We got so lucky out there, but luckily Keaton was fast enough to get us going through the first half. But yeah, it was pretty sketchy out there.
I think sketchy is an understatement, because we talked about it in the booth. We had a couple of guests there as well in the middle of the race, and they described just how chaotic it was to be behind the wheel in these multi-class affairs. Of course, one of them in a Subaru, Chris Leone, and Cisco in a Pro 2 Light. As being the fastest truck and the most powerful one on the grid, this unlimited truck, the Pro 4 off-road vehicles, how was it to be sort of the pioneers of lap traffic, as you and all the other guys in the group of this unlimited truck class were pretty much the ones, the fastest and the ones barreling through the rest of the field?
Oh, it was so tough. Like, you'd come up on a group of 5 of them and you don't know which way they go. They all come into a corner. One's going off the track and you have another one coming back on the track from like 2 lanes over. It was like the craziest racing ever. So you avoid the craziness. First race win was the Group Therapy 100 at Crandon. You both resurged back, same team, same everything, same numbers, same truck. It was pretty much the same everything. No real big changes apart from the track and the race name. And you both get maximized points. You both win. What's the motive here with all the momentum going into what's going to be the August 25th race at Wild West? Yeah, I don't know. We have kept the same strat that we won the first race with, and it worked out for us this time. So we'll probably keep it the same. Wild West is going to be a whole different ball game. It's such a short track, and the corners, like, it's so easy to just tip over nothing. So it's going to be pretty interesting. I'm ready for it.
Of course, ready for the challenge as always, and I think we'll be ready, Ian and I, if we get the chance to broadcast this once again, because tonight was just so much fun here from the virtual Bark River International Raceway. Crystal, on behalf of all of our team, want to congratulate you and Keen on your second straight 100-miler off-road dirt multi-class win with these organizers, and of course, winning the Shenandoah Shine Great Lakes 100. We hope to see you both and everybody else move forward to Wild West in August.
Thanks, we had fun. Me and Keaton, we'll see you then.
So Crystal King gets the final laps in for Factory Sim Sport, and her and Keaton Swain get to victory lane here in the unlimited truck class. What a drive it was for them, but what a drive it was for the driver in the Volkswagen Beetle light class, the slowest cars out of every single car or truck in this race, and they end up the winners of their class, and 6th overall. It's Cam Peterson sat by with Ian Fisher.
Cam, good to see you again in the Racecraft TV booth. We've seen you a few times up here already, so familiar territory for you. Getting it done in the Beetle Light tonight. What was your strategy going into tonight? Do you guys think you were the car to beat, or were you just trying to survive?
I mean, who knows what's going to happen? So many cars in the track. Such a long race. There's so much that can go wrong, so much that can go right for you. We had a little bad luck, a little whoopsie daisy over the tabletop, and I ended up flipping and ended up on my lid and wasted like probably 2 laps worth of time, which is kind of frustrating, but kind of have to laugh at it. It is what it is. But if that didn't happen, I think we would have been up there fighting for the win.
You know, I did have that question I wanted to ask you. I did see you guys get taken out there. You had to reset. That's a big deal here in these races. That's the only way that you're going to lose a significant chunk of time, I feel like. So what was y'all's strategy after that wreck? Well, did you think you still had a chance to get to the front, or were you just trying to drive the laps that you could drive?
Mostly we were just fighting for P1 in our class, not overall. I didn't think that I figured the speed was going to level out in regards to the Beetle and the Pro 4. I knew that we were going to probably end up being at least as quick. I didn't know that we were going to end up being quicker. We ended up doing the fastest lap of the race, which is pretty cool. Yeah, in terms of strategy, it was just put the pedal to the metal and stay out of trouble after that, because I learned my lesson pretty quick.
And you talked about that fastest lap of the race. I know you're very familiar with racing the Pro 4, Pro 2 truck here at Park River. What were some of the differences when you hopped into the Beetle that you noticed?
It's just like I'm like driving their truck from outside of their truck kind of thing. You know, having experience is what I'm trying to say is very, very important when you're racing against other vehicles in like a different class, because when I see their truck rotate or balance a certain way, I know what it's going to do, and I know they're all running the exact same setup, so I can use that to my advantage to, you know, maybe get like an outside in kind of move, and as the track wears out, I can find out where the grip is best for me and not best for them. So I'll kind of use that to my advantage, and kind of try to work my way to the front.
Yeah, and working your way to the front is very important. It was able to get you P1 in your class tonight. Anybody you want to shout out helping you get P1 there, Cam?
Absolutely. Teammate Connor Parisi, phenomenal job. He did a great job at the start there, keeping himself out of trouble. Everybody on the Jim Beaver Esports team, all the guys, we're all hanging out in the Discord together, having a fun time, and that's what these events are all about. And hats off to them. We had a great time. General Tire, didn't have them in the car tonight. That was my fault. Should have been on the car. But anyways, General Tire, fistful of bourbon, winners get whiskey, and Next Level Racing. And I just want to thank you guys in the booth for broadcasting this. I'm looking forward to watching this because I know it's a pretty lengthy race, so it's going to be one to get the popcorn out for sure. And I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, and they maybe didn't have the sponsors on the car tonight, Kenneth, but that jet black car drove by Cam Peterson, Connor Parise, meant business all night long. Thanks a lot for hanging out with us, Cam.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Cam Peterson is the winner on behalf of the Camnor Parasurson team in the 548. The Volkswagen Beetle Light ends up as the winners in their respective class. We don't have Daniel Eisch yet on representation of Motorless Motorsport as they go to the win in the Subaru class, the unlimited car section of this race. But we do have our Pro 2 Light winner, and it's AMX iRacing White that gets the victory, and it's Taylor Vandenbush behind the wheel. Taylor, I mean, AMX iRacing, unbelievable performance. Not only your team, the AMX iRacing White group, but the AMX iRacing Red group. It looked like you both just were able to put a clinic on the rest of the field. And by the way, getting a second straight win after the Group Therapy 100. So how does that feel?
It feels awesome. Being at the second race here with them, and we kind of changed things up for the AMX iRacing team, and we went 3 trucks this time, and even had a truck in the Pro 4 class that was running unofficial, but it's been great.
And of course, it didn't come without a lot of hard work, a lot of precision, and a lot of avoidance for the lap traffic and everything that came in. I mean, it's a multi-class off-road dirt race based off of the Group Therapy 100 and based off the Great Lakes 100 that you just finished here with both of them, with you in the victory circle. How is it to kind of process the way that these multi-class off-road dirt races go behind the wheel?
It takes a lot of communication between spotter and driver running with teams here, because you get the cars, they're faster on straights. The Pro 4s, they get you on the straights as well in these trucks. But in the corners, in the beginning part of the race, we get these cars. And when it starts blowing up like that, those cars start to pick up on us. And it comes down to stop racing the other classes. They don't matter. So our focus is let them by, save the time. And it seems to have worked.
And I was just about to bring that up, the handling differences over when this race was fresh on the track and when the track ended up being worn out here at Bark River. And we talked to Cisco Scaramuza, who was part of Team Rick and probably one of the big rivals against you guys, as they were P2 in the final laps of this race. How was it to manage the slick stuff versus the cushion in a place where pretty much you guys are going 100 miles and the track is constantly changing with a truck that doesn't really like the darkened parts of the racetrack?
It's about staying out of that blue at that point. It was about halfway through when we noticed the truck was pushing real hard, and you got to start using that e-brake to get you to turn. Otherwise, you start pushing through it. But try to run that cushion, and that's kind of what we focused on, keeping 2 tires on the clean dirt.
Well, the team certainly does that. AMX iRacing to another win, and with you behind the wheel to close it off. Taylor, on behalf of our team here at Racecraft TV, want to send you a large congratulations for winning your class here in the Shenandoah Shine Great Lakes 100, and we hope to see you and the rest of AMX iRacing when you guys all return ultimately in August for Wild West.
Well, yeah, we'll be there. We might even switch it up some more again, so we'll see. We were talking about maybe even getting into the cars.
We'll hopefully see that. Of course, Taylor, again, congratulations on the win. We hope to see you in August.
All right, thank you, guys.
Taylor Vandenbush in the number 26, the Pro 2 Light, they get the win in their class. Well, we got a hold of the winners of the Subaru Unlimited Car class, and it's Daniel Aish who takes this Subaru, this very colorful Subaru, to victory lane here in the Great Lakes 100. Ian Fisher, you've got him.
Yeah, we're actually going to be standing by with the other driver of that car, which is going to be Cohen Attard. Cohen, great run for you and Daniel Aish. I know you guys have known each other for a long time, really good friends. How much of that went into your team strategy and just picking each other as teammates?
He only asked me the other night, to be honest, but we sort of just gelled together. I don't know, it sort of came naturally. Just ever since we do motocross, it sort of just runs in the blood, I guess you could say.
Yeah, you touched on that motocross experience that you guys both have. I'm sure that helps you out on this dirt racing at least a little bit. Am I correct in assuming that?
Oh, I think it does. Yeah, people say I'm better at dirt, but I'm sort of loose at everything, if you ask me. But I say dirt, yeah. Motocross does come into play a lot when you're playing with rally cars or the trucks. Knows Josh, you got Josh Edmondson and a few other guys that know their stuff in it very well, that do dirt bikes.
Yeah, and we mentioned you're bad fast in pretty much any car that you get into. I know that Daniel Aish really likes running the fixed setups, and I touched on it a little bit in the broadcast, how it kind of played into his advantage. What were your thoughts on the fixed setup going into this race? Were you excited for that as well?
I appreciate that, thanks. Yeah, fixed setup, I do actually prefer that over, aftermarket setups, if you call that, or playing with my sets. I can't really seem to get good ones anyway. And when people send them to me, I don't really like them. I always just go back to baseline. So I was actually pretty happy when they said it's fixed. I thought it would sort of, be more up there with that.
Yeah, and the Australian connection really made it work tonight. Good enough for first place in the unlimited car class. Anybody you want to shout out that helps you get it done there, Cohen?
Gee, I don't know, just Aishi teaming up and everyone who put it together. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and thank you. And just so you know, you got a lot of support in the chat there from your fellow Aussies. So really making them proud tonight too as well, Cohen. So Kenneth, really good to see the international flavor to all the drivers we have, and really appreciate you spending some time here in the booth with us, Cohen.
Oh, thank you. Go the Aussies.
And that is sure is correct. And man, all these Aussies out here are just so fast in rallycross, Kenneth. Anytime they're there, you got to watch out for them.
That is so true, and specifically that duo between Daniel Aisha and Koen Atar, both of them dramatically quick in that Subaru, and it looked like they really weren't phased despite all the craziness that happened here at Bark River International Raceway. So they're the winners of the Unlimited Car class. We officially interviewed pretty much all of the drivers that sent this one home, and congrats to all of them. Great driving efforts, but just got to give a shout out to everybody in this race and all the people that makes this happen. These races, these multi-class dirt road races, which you usually don't see often on the iRacing service. Ian, I don't know about you, but from the broadcast perspective, it was just so much fun to watch.
Oh, so much fun to watch, but you know, it's always also an endurance race for us too, Kenneth. Filling an hour and a half of time is not an easy task, but we were able to get it done, and like a lot of these drivers, were able to get it done today. Big congratulations to all of our winners, and really just a shout out to Chris Leone, Shenandoah Shine, and everybody else, Racecraft TV, that helped put this together, Kenneth.
So it was a great race from start to finish, and we've got our winners in check. It was a great afternoon in sim, a great night overall here at the Bark River International Raceway in the Shenandoah Shine Great Lakes 100. Got to give a shout out and a thanks to all the people, all the sponsors, everybody that makes these races possible. For Shenandoah Shine on the sponsorship, for hashtag Yes2 Motorsports, and dirt development of the Vortex series. It was just a lot of fun. Got to appreciate all of their support. So for everyone that makes this happen on the organizer side, on the sponsor side, or whatever, we appreciate the support. And on behalf of all of us at Racecraft TV, for our producer, Zach Johnson, and for my colleague in the booth, Ian Fisher, my name is Kenneth Bueno. Circle the calendar, August 25th, the Sierra Nevada 100 from the virtual Wild West Raceway comes up next. But until then, good night from Bark River.